Ignition, strap in. You're about to listen to.
Welcome to the NBeezzy Podcast.
Everybody says, who does he think he is? I just told you who I thought I was.
NBeezzy.
I just told you. That's who I think I am.
I'm a terrible person who's come to believe unforgivable things.
What is going on, people? We are back. This is episode 3. We're getting a little more official now. We got some cameras going. Matt's back in the house. And today I figure we're going to talk about, this episode's slated to be a Bigfoot evidence podcast, but I think we're going to go more of a, just let it flow.
Yeah.
You know, what's on your mind? Let's talk about it. Let's let it loose. Obviously, we are recording on the 9th of November, and this is a Saturday, and we're here in the good blue state of Washington.
Yeah.
And
I like how you put that.
Matt, tell me how you feel.
I am going to give you a grounded outlook here, but also just some of my fears moving forward, right? Mm-hmm. So obviously, from where I sit, the election didn't work out the way I wanted it to. Mm-hmm. And it couldn't have worked out worse, actually. And that's fine. I as a child of the 80s, I lived through Reagan. I don't think this is really that different, people talk about, doom and gloom. It's the end of elections. It's not. I mean, it really isn't. It's really going to swing a certain way for a long time. And it's going to have impacts that definitely our children's children are going to feel. And depending on what side of that you're on, that's fine. One thing I've said to people consistently is I am all about what the people want, and we can overwhelmingly see that this is what people wanted. Right. I really do hope that they're prepared for those consequences, because I do think there are some immediate consequences to that. And depending on how you feel, right? For you and me, CHIPS and CARES Acts,
CHIPS and CARES,
CARES specifically requires the government to use prevailing wage for government jobs.
Okay.
So that's something that obviously, we saw a lot of tech billionaires and billionaires in general kind of jump in, and two union busters in Bezos and Musk kind of jump in. So that's something, Musk's after the NLRB, so you can pretty much figure that's gone.
Okay.
So for those that don't know, that's the National Labor Relations Board. And whenever you want to make a complaint, or you want to make sure that your rights are taken care of at the workplace, that's who's defending you. That's who's taking those cases on.
Yeah.
Primarily union, but labor,
Relations.
like you and I do. So that's something obviously right off the bat. Those are two things. CHIPS is along those lines too. And then national right to work. National right to work. I don't know the constitutionality of that, but with the Supreme Court the way that it is, I mean,
you think it's going to go away though?
No. Not go away.
I mean, be pushed upon other places that it's.
At the state level, they've been successful at the state level. The Republicans have been successful at the state level, definitely. Pushing that on certain states, and aside from Michigan, really no one's gone back. There's only a few holdout states. I think only like maybe 12 or 13 holdout states, maybe not even that much, for right to work. And again, those that don't know what right to work is, it's a confusing bill, but it kind of boils down to you aren't required to pay your dues as a condition of being a member of a union.
Okay.
Right. So unions work on dues, and dues aren't the same for everybody. To kind of boil it down, in our union, in our local, our dues are only about 2.5% to 3% of our gross pay, which is not much. It's a very, very small number. Some unions pay a lot more. And it really just depends on your representation, and stuff. But if members aren't required to pay dues, they won't.
Right.
And then the union itself shrinks significantly, not only in size but in influence, and it makes it difficult, just like NLRB, to fight those labor issues.
Right.
And generally, what we start to see is those agreements and contracts that were made between the union and contractors kind of start to go away.
Yeah.
Again, people may not understand the impact of that, but that does mean that when you're starting to ask about going to get a raise, just
kick rocks.
Yeah,
dude.
exactly. Kick rocks. And then some of the certification standards and things like that. So that's my doom and gloom.
Okay.
That's me.
And you really think that's gonna be a change in this 4-year cycle?
I think those are the things that national right to work would be tough.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that's on their radar. I don't know if that's something they're
I've
still
never
trying
heard
to
about
pursue.
it, so you just said it.
At the state level, you've heard of it.
I've heard of it, but I hear people talking about union busting and blah, blah, blah. Never to the point where I've heard a candidate talk about, I'm not going to do this or I'm going to do this.
Correct.
So
yeah. They usually don't.
I think it's just fear mongering from the stands.
Yeah, and the thing is that's also something that like I don't know that I've heard someone bring up. That's more me internally, kind of.
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
I maybe I'm not trying to fear monger. It's just something I know. Right to work is a big thing for Republicans. It's a big thing they want to run on. Business owners don't like unions, obviously.
Right.
Maybe that happens, maybe not. Chips and cares, I do think are immediately a threat. And I do think that the NLRB, we've already seen that being attacked by Bezos and by actually Elon Musk here over the last couple of years has just flooded them with lawsuits. So they're been virtually ineffective. Really? Right. And again, anybody that wants to go ahead and look that up, do your research. You can. I hate saying do your research. I kind of but it is out there. I mean, I hate the do your research thing because I'm not a journalist, obviously.
Right.
But in a capacity, I could, in a capacity like this where I could speak to people, it's kind of like it's condescending to say, do your own research. That's what you're listening to me for.
Right. I'm coming to you to give me some information.
Yeah.
Or show me or point me in, like, so I was thinking about the way, not to derail.
No, you're great.
I wanted to, because I'm not a research person, but I will listen to a lot of people who've maybe done some research, maybe not. They could be talking out of their ass too. But I wanted to like maybe bring what's in my focus of things that I come across that's interesting. Like, oh, this guy says he did some research and this is what he found. Let me show you what I looked at, and then let me dissect or talk about what's here.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. So, but I don't think so. Because my house melted down.
Sure. My house also melted down, by the way.
Well, the reason why my house melted down is because I wasn't voting for the Democratic candidate. Let's take that back. I didn't vote.
Yeah, sure.
I didn't vote because I don't believe in the system. That's the ground level. But I also didn't vote because I didn't want to counteract my wife's vote, and that wasn't enough. So we started to go head to head because she wanted my vote for me to do something for the one issue on that side that she was so passionate about, which is women's rights. Yeah. And when pointed with the question, do you care about women? Do you think these things are wrong? 100%. I think those things are horrible. Yeah. And I'm on board with the exact intention and vein of your fight, what you're fighting for. But what I did not articulate in that conversation was that I also heavily believe in this thing that people call the deep state. Yeah. And I think it's real. And I unfortunately think that the side that has captured the government is that side. That side represents, in my mind, the perspective I put. If puppet strings are being pulled, it's being pulled on that side of the coin. They're both bad.
On the blue side.
The blue side.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Okay.
All of government, I think, has some fingers in everything, and it's not going to go the way that the people want it all the time. But one side maybe more than the other.
I get where people come from with the deep state stuff, and I think that a lot of where the idea comes from. Honestly, I don't think either side has any fucking clue what they're doing.
No.
Right? And I think that's obvious, and how much Democrats missed the mark on this one.
100%.
So on the deep state thing, what I would say is one thing I point to is how difficult it is for a Democratic president to get elected, and how easy it is for a Republican one to get elected.
What?
So follow me on this really quickly. Do you think in this day and age that it's possible for a Democratic candidate to get elected and lose the popular vote?
Yeah, because electoral college, right? Wait,
but that's how
lose the popular vote and get elected.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying in theory. I'm saying in actual function. Do you think it's possible for a Democratic candidate to lose the popular vote and win the election? And the answer to this is really going to be no.
Probably not.
Because it is actually rigged. And not on purpose, just over time.
Gerrymandering, you mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah, gerrymandering, all kinds of things. It's significant, and we don't even need to just say that as posit that as an opinion. I mean, we've got 3 separate elections we can look at where a Republican candidate has won the election and lost the popular vote, and a Democratic candidate never has.
Okay.
You know, so they have to not only win that electoral vote, but they also have to win the popular vote in order to get elected. So that's one thing I always kind of throw into people's laps when we're talking about deep state stuff, because I do think that there's the way that this whole system is drawn up with voting districts really heavily favors Republican candidates.
I would agree with you.
You know, even if Kamala had, you know, and we've seen this, we saw Hillary win by almost 4 or 5 million votes, you know, and we saw Biden win the election, and he had like 10 million more, almost 12 million more votes than Trump. And then electorally, they were almost neck to neck.
Yeah.
I mean, 12 million people.
I think there was some fuckery going on there.
I don't think there's fuckery going on there.
I
mean, the same system just elected Donald Trump.
Agreed, but I think so anyway, Rogan just brought up some stats that I saw, and I was like, that's weird.
I think one of the things that people, you know, definitely, like, whenever they throw the stats out there in a vacuum and you don't really think about it, it was an extraordinary election.
The Biden election?
Yeah. Because you had people, we had a whole mail out vote thing,
Yeah,
you
that's
know, and you know, we even watched this happen, and this happens every time. We watch the Republicans come out to a quick lead, and they talk about how fuckery happens after midnight. The reason those votes come in so fast is because the places that vote for them are so sparsely populated. There's not as many votes to count. So those results come in much faster.
Okay.
You know, and then we look at like a Pennsylvania. You got to look, every state's got different voting laws.
Right.
So Pennsylvania can't start counting their mail-in vote until after the polls close. That's their law. So you will see Republicans typically vote in person, right? So you will see a lot of Republicans, like, you'll see them way up, right? I would actually counter, and I would say Kamala was up by 300,000 votes before the polls closed in Pennsylvania, and then Trump made that lead up. But I don't see anybody going, whoa, what happened here? It was literally the same thing that happened. But that's the way that it works.
Yeah, I guess.
Because that mail-out vote favored Trump, and it didn't
So
favor...
do you think elections are always fair? And you think there's any fuckery at all?
I think any fuckery that occurs is in the courts, right? And
So nothing happens on the ground level where there's cheating or mail-in, dropping something, like any of the weird stuff that they say happens out there.
you know, show me some evidence.
I don't have any evidence.
You know, not you. Just these guys. I mean, they take. You know, you've got Dinesh D'Souza, who makes the 1,000 Mules or 2,000 Mules op-ed, right? Or it's a documentary. You should look at it and watch it.
Okay.
Basically says that all these people are ballot stuffing, but he can't show you a video of the same person going to 2 different ballot boxes or the same person going to the same ballot box twice. He's just got a bunch of, like, he's like, look at this ballot box and look at the cell phone that you know, with cell phone data that moves by this ballot box 30 times this day. Yeah, on their fucking way to work. Yeah. Excuse my language. You know what I mean? Like, I think that you can take things that you know, out of context, you know, or not apply context to them and make them look like anything.
Okay,
right?
fair.
I think over and over and over again, they say that there's something in the neighborhood of, and this is not just Democrats, this is not just Republicans, this is data in general. They say it's something like 11 fraudulent votes per billion.
That's not very many.
No, it's a very small number. So when you ask me, do I think there's any fuckery going on? I think there's fuckery in the courts. Absolutely, both sides, 100%. Okay. And I expect there'll be some kind of fuckery with the Democratic side because everybody wants to win, you know? But they're not going to do anything illegal. They're just going to try to, you know, use some precedents or something in court as like a Hail Mary to get something overturned. I mean, we can go back to Gore Bush, 2000.
Hanging Chad?
Gore won the election.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, he really did. He won.
That actually got stolen. For real.
100% stolen. 1,000%. Like it landed not even remotely. Like there's no argument. Like the Supreme Court, who by the way was liberal, was Democratic, voted in favor, like decided in favor of George W. Bush, and basically handed him that election. It's wild. It's, you know, it's crazy. That's an actual stolen election. That's what it really looks like. I think that you're not hearing people, the same system. Exact same system. We heard they're going to cheat. And then when Trump won, I haven't heard a single guy say,
dude, I was about to make a small, like, little podcast and say, this is what I thought it was going to be what it looked like in the beginning. And then in the end, the cheating would come and then Kamala would win. That's what I thought was going to happen. It didn't, but I have reasons why I think it didn't, but regardless, it didn't.
Well, there's no cheat. Honestly, there really isn't. I mean,
but you also don't know that for a fact.
yeah, but I also, I've never been to the moon, but I know it's there. I mean,
Yeah, you can say that, but it could also be like I can come up with a billion things to be like, oh, but we've never set foot on it, you never touched it.
I think on some level we do have to trust people like experts. We do have to trust somebody, and we've got people on both sides, not just Democrats. We got Republicans are also like both these elections.
Right. Who are we trusting? We trusting the media? Are we trusting a person?
I don't think you can trust any one individual person.
Okay.
Ever. But I just to kind of throw this back on you, what I'm being asked to do to believe that there was cheating in the election is ignore everybody but Donald Trump.
Well, okay.
Anybody?
Wait, there are other people that say there was.
There are, but I basically I have to start like deciding to ignore even people who are around him. Even people that worked for him, even people that were in his, like I have to start to ignore, what Barr says. I have to ignore what Milley says. I have to ignore what, Cheney says. I have to.
It's funny. He was on Joe and Joe asked him, show me the proof or show me some evidence about the fact that you think that the other election was stolen. And he couldn't pinpoint anything.
No, because there's nothing.
I don't know if there's nothing. But.
Well, on the 72, on all 72 of the fraud, quote unquote fraud cases. Here's the thing, and this is a really, really interesting thing. Donald Trump, the guy's brilliant. I don't think he's stupid. I don't think he's lazy. I think he's a very, very brilliant, calculating man. I really do. Right?
Okay.
Whether I like the guy or not. A thing that he does is he comes out and he says fraud and he says they cheated and all this because he can say that open in the court of public opinion. But when you actually look at the court cases, every single one of them wasn't about fraud. Not a single one of his court cases was fraud.
What was about that?
Every one of them was some kind of procedural thing like we're talking about Kamala doing. Like they counted these votes and we don't want them to count those ones and they did this and we don't want them to count this.
Any lawyer knows that you can't put like just conjecture out there. Like he said, she said.
Yeah. So if you're alleging fraud and you're not taking it to court and claiming it's fraud and you're just claiming it's procedural, I mean, that's two completely different things here.
Okay.
And he can't hammer down one thing and he never does. And he's had 4 years to present evidence and not one time has he.
Fair.
Because in this whole idea.
I don't know why. I've never heard any other like combative like, oh, we didn't do this because we didn't want to get this person in trouble or what. I don't know. But
yeah, well, and that whole thing too. And I've heard people say stuff like, things like, say things like, well, they destroyed all the evidence. Okay, so where's the evidence that they destroyed the evidence? Like, I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, there's something here. You got to give me what we're doing is we're trying to explain something that we don't have evidence to explain. So we're fabricating a story to make that make sense, which actually really plays into a lot of what we're talking about.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's transition off of.
Yeah.
We could beat this dead horse.
No. Well, before we go, I just wanted to go. I want to add one more thing to this because I gave the doom and gloom.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm from that perspective. But people keep on saying 4-year cycle, and it's not a 4-year cycle. It's a 2-year cycle.
Because after 2 years,
they got Senate, they got House.
Okay.
Or well, they don't have. I mean, I guess they don't have one of those yet, right? But they're probably going to get it, right? Mm-hmm. There's another election in 2 years. Mm-hmm. Also, for everybody out there that cares and about the Constitution but knows nothing about it, in order to change an amendment to the Constitution, you have to get a 2/3 majority, Senate and House. Not going to happen, right? You have to get the Supreme Court. That could happen. Mm-hmm. You have to get the president. Obviously, that can happen, and then you have to get 50 states to ratify. So constitutionally, none of your rights are going away. The only things that are in danger are court precedences and norms. And norms are things that aren't written down, that are just practice, like, don't prosecute your enemies. Don't wield the justice system against people, right? Yeah. And we can, obviously have an opinionated conversation about that both ways. And then there's the things that aren't constitutional amendments or laws or statutes that are instead like the Dobbs decision, Roe v. Wade, right?
Okay. Yeah.
The equal marriage stuff like that. Those kinds of things aren't an amendment; they're constitutional precedents, and we can figure any of those are pretty much fair game.
Right.
Right. So if they want to go after any of those things, they've got everything they need to do it. Right. But amendments are safe. It's a 2-year election cycle. I mean, you could be here, in 2 years, it could be Donald Trump and a packed House and a packed Senate that's all Democrats, and he would be able to do nothing. So
I'm not worried about there being laws changed or things.
I'm not worried, period.
Yeah. So that's why I think, why are we melting down and we so like all over, anyway, whatever. It'll be fine.
I think on that, I think that it, I this is gonna sound weird as a white individual, but I heard this said on CNN, and I think it's kind of worth repeating, or MSNBC. I've been watching. I can't remember what I was watching the night it happened, but something along the lines of there were a lot of black women and girls in this country that thought that maybe this might be the one time when they didn't get the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of hurt.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
know,
There's
and
a lot of that.
And you know, you can sit here and listen to me say that. People who are listening to this can listen to that and laugh and think that's great, but like show a little compassion.
No, I totally
You know.
understand. Because like if you have somebody that's out there that you feel it represents you,
Yeah.
and has a chance to get in, regardless of all the other surrounding things around it, you want that person to win.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, oh man, your team lost, and it's like the most disheartening loss you've ever experienced.
For me, I was like, I live in Washington.
Yeah,
Like,
it's fine.
It's not going to affect me. I
No.
mean, I hate to be like that, but I mean,
sucks.
honestly, this is a liberal stronghold. Maine and Washington are the only states in the country that voted more liberal than the previous election. So I'm not concerned. I'm really just not concerned.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Anyway, all right, let's get up to the conversation at hand.
Appreciate you giving me that little moment there to kind of.
It's all good. It's all good. Let's see. So anyway, so we're talking about Bigfoot and physical evidence. So
Sure.
when we talk about physical evidence and this mythical thing called Bigfoot, it comes down to a few things like casts and hair samples, and then something that maybe that animal or thing has manipulated into, you know, to say like, okay, if I have something that's changed in my environment and I think that it's this thing, now what did it? And that's a leap. So I have something a tree that I think is broken, and I know that there's no bulldozer here that could break that tree, but something super strong did this. I don't know how, and I see footprints around it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Sure.
You don't have evidence of the animal, but you have evidence of something's been here and did this, and it falls in line with this thing we're talking about.
So I think that what we should do, and this is maybe not the most exciting thing for an audio kind of version of this, but the very first thing that you
we
and
got
I,
video. What are you talking about?
yeah, we got for sure, for sure.
Okay.
But I think the first thing that we should really do is lay ground rules, like what what are our rules for evidence? Like what, how do I mean this? I was thinking about the way to say this,
Well, tell me what your rules are.
well, I think we definitely have to establish these, right?
Throw first. Just balls on you.
Is there a reasonable alternate explanation? So that's really like my number one.
Okay. Go
Right.
ahead. Okay.
So I'm gonna write. Would we agree? Like
A reasonable.
reasonable, right? Like I can't be like, was it a meteor? Like that's unreasonable.
A reasonable alternate. So if there's no reasonable alternate explanation, what?
That, I mean, it doesn't prove that by itself doesn't prove anything, right? But like, say like, okay, if you said like for example, the casts, the footprints, right? And a broken tree, could a person have set that up?
Yes, but they could. How? Okay. Yes, a person could set that up, but could a person set that up with no trace of the person being there?
Okay. That is, I think
That falls into the same thing, a reasonable explanation, right?
I think my pen's.
You want another one? I got
Yeah, if you got one.
mine's screwy too.
No, it's all right.
I need a nice one, but I have a regular bulb one. That were like Monday. These should work for me.
So reasonable explanation. So this so we start hammering down on things, right? Mm-hmm. So the problem with whether or not somebody, and this is a thing I run into a lot with some of these Bigfoot conversations that I've had with people in the past, is how do we know they didn't leave any evidence? Because the person collecting the evidence has a bias.
Okay.
If a lot of people who go out and look for Bigfoot find things that lead them to think that Bigfoot exists.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So if you walked up on a situation, and I feel so shitty doing this. If you walked up on the situation where you saw, I've got footprints that I can cast, I've got a tree that's broken that I can't explain, and you start doing your investigation, you just naturally, I would do this if we were out there and I'm trying to disprove it.
Right.
I'm literally looking for evidence to disprove Bigfoot, right?
Okay.
So I'm gonna look right past. You're not doing it on purpose.
No.
Like it's just bias that you have, right? You're gonna look past other evidence. as a result. So it's difficult to say, it's difficult to throw that on there as a caveat and say, did it happen without anybody leaving evidence of an alternate explanation? And that sucks.
Okay.
God, that's
No, I'll give you that works for, but okay.
I know.
Because okay, so say let's just, we've had this situation before. Me and you are out in the woods. We hear some shit, and we're both hairs on edge, and we're like, dude, I don't know what that sound was. It sounds like it's close.
Yep.
We should get the fuck out of here. But then, we hear some things break, crack. We bolt for the car, right?
Sure.
We go to the car. Maybe we can't leave or something, but we sleep in the car. We're scared. We get up in the morning. We go back to the site, and now we walk up on this site, right? Because we were both there.
Yep.
We know where our tracks were, we were, and we heard a sound in this direction. You and I both walk up on said site, and I'm making decisions and drawing links to this was Bigfoot.
Yeah.
You're looking and drawing. Was there a dude out here
Yeah.
messing with us?
So we had this conversation, I think, last time, and I told you, if you and I are both there and this thing happens,
Yeah.
I'm probably with you on this being Bigfoot. and the reason why is neither one of us is really a person that's out there setting Bigfoot shit up.
No.
Right? Like you and I both were out there. So if we come out of that car in the morning, that tree's broken, our shit's trashed,
Yeah.
and there's Bigfoot prints,
Yeah.
I'm high-fiving you. We just found Bigfoot. Like I'm telling you.
And we're
like,
done. We don't
yeah,
have-
and it's over. And you've convinced me. Like, because I don't think that somebody came along to our middle of the nowhere Okanagan campsite
Right.
and hoaxed us just on that day. I mean, that's the least likely explanation.
It's not reasonable.
It is no, that would be a reasonable explanation at that point.
I mean, a hoax.
Oh,
would be-
yeah, the hoax would be unreasonable. Absolutely would be unreasonable.
Okay, so now let's pause here because I was in search of this podcast. I was like, okay, well, the only way I'm gonna get this dude to move a notch, or even maybe I moved you a notch, but like to go to 10 or 9 is to have an experience. I'm like, well, how can I have an experience? We're in the backyard of this dude, so why can't I find a place to go that we could camp and we can do this? And then I was looking online. Okay, so East Eddy Ranch is close to us.
Yeah.
And people go there all the time, and like undoubtedly they're having experiences with UFOs, aliens, Bigfoot. They see eye shine. Now I'm reading the people's testimonials, and I'm like, okay, what I'm looking at is like, could Matt could Matt explain this away? Okay, maybe you could do that one. Like,
I love that you're thinking that way.
what experience do I have to do do I have to put my life in danger so that this man?
No, you don't need to put your life
No,
in danger.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
I'm joking that way. But
Yeah. No, well, I mean,
because we can do an East Eddy and I would love to do an
Yeah.
East Eddy excursion where we both go for the weekend and we bring our tents and like.
I've told you I want to do this.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm in.
And
But we got to do it next year.
And I'm not looking. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just not going out in this cold. I'm kind of bougie.
It ends in September, I think, and so I'm looking at the dates, and like it starts back up in like the spring.
I'm absolutely game to do it. And like I said in the last one, I'm not out to disprove Bigfoot. I'm not out to prove or disprove Bigfoot.
Right.
So like I while I'm skeptical, I'm not actively searching to disprove this. Like that's not my goal here.
Okay.
My goal is just to get to. I mean, like we were talking about last time we talked, you were like, shit, I might end up moving more to your side if this doesn't, as we go through this.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not trying to change your belief system or anything, or what you feel is real or what you think is real. Because honestly, like you've learned as you get older that reality is really just perception,
100%.
and I have a different perception,
what you've been through, right? Exactly.
So, no, I'm absolutely all about that. But like I said, I just think we should definitely like both ways lay down ground rules for what's evidence.
So we got one. What's the next one?
Evidence isn't something you interpret,
Evidence and something you interpret.
right? So
Explain.
I get people who go, I can prove to you that we didn't land on the moon if you're open-minded about the evidence.
Open-minded.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
that's exactly my look. Like, if you give me evidence, I don't need to be open-minded about it. Evidence is evidence.
Clear, right?
But you and I both know that there's no such thing as a smoking gun. Like there's nothing that definitively 100% says this is this or that's that.
Right.
It's a combination of things. You build a case.
Okay.
So if you've got fur samples that can't be identified,
Oh.
Right.
Then just throw it out.
well, no, I don't throw it out. Not at all. Like I can't identify them. I don't know what animal they belong
So
to.
what do you do with it then?
That's a piece of evidence.
But you can't interpret it.
So I guess I got to be. Let me interpreting that would be you can't identify it, so it must be Bigfoot.
No.
Right. So that would be an example of taking a piece of evidence and interpreting it.
And saying it's Bigfoot because we can't, we haven't genomed it, or we don't have like the.
Yeah.
Okay.
And even if, I mean, honestly, like even if you could genome it or whatever, if you didn't ever have a sample of a Bigfoot that you proved existed, that means
There's
nothing.
Yeah.
So
why would you even get it tested anyway?
I mean, to prove that it's not something else.
Oh, okay. Fair,
you know, right?
Fair.
You know,
So that's a loose answer when you get back. It's not. We don't know what it is.
that by itself's nothing.
Yeah.
Right. You can't.
But it proved what you thought it was going to be. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know what it is. So I take that thing, right, and say like that fur is co-located with now these footprints. And these footprints have skin cells, right? Like what we can pick up that we know are inside of this footprint.
Yep.
We've tested that right now. We can't identify those skin cells. So then I go, okay, now I've got
Two things.
I've got two things. Now both these things together still don't tell me that it's a Bigfoot.
What?
But they do tell me that this is something we don't know what it is, right?
But that's still nothing.
But we're building a case.
Of what? We
Right?
don't have any answers.
I agree. That's evidence. That's how evidence works.
But it's not evidence. It's like, okay, if you can't interpret it and you said, okay, if we don't, making the leap and saying, because I don't know what this is, it has to be Bigfoot, you can't do that.
Absolutely.
You can't jump.
I feel like that's what a lot of people do.
But it's saying we know it's not a bear.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess saying that we know it's not a bear kind of checks the box of we're getting it checked out.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we're building. You got to build a case.
Can't interpret. Okay.
Yep.
Can't interpret evidence.
Or not so much you can't interpret evidence. Evidence you don't need evidence is evidence. You don't need to be open minded.
No open-mindedness. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I got some shit for you today then.
No, I love it.
I want to hear your response to this one. Okay. And then what else?
Give me a sec here.
Okay. Because the more you know,
I'm loving that. That's perfect. I'm just gonna put this in quotations. Open mind. So I just put evidence can't be open minded. Just basically, you can't be like, well, if you're open minded, that's what this means, right? Like,
I'm not trying to make you believe. So.
it's a hair sample that we can't identify. So there's an alternate dimension. Like that's
No.
like that's hard for me.
It's
you know,
stretch. It's a
and that's another thing too. Is like kind of like a little tangent on that is sometimes when people are trying to convince you, and you're naturally like kind of a skeptical person, they don't realize that you can't start talking about other dimensions to me because I'm just like, that's not gonna work on me, right? So, I'm like, I don't know. So those are two of my rules. What do you got? You got something to throw in here?
No, I don't. I'm gonna flow by because my mind is all over the place, right? But I agreed since the last podcast that taking something physical or whatever and leaping to sounds and I feel this or my hair on my back stands up and smashing that together with Bigfoot until you see it, feel it, touch it, have an experience, you can't say it.
No, exactly. Yeah, I agree with that.
That's what it is. But the physical evidence and what I'm hearing these people say. Okay, let's put this in the ground. I am a believer of Bigfoot.
Absolutely.
Because of the countless mounds of people's experiences that I've heard and talked and listened to. So I'm listening to all the things they say, I'm matching up all the things these people say with other experiences and saying, okay, I have an idea how this thing works and where you could find it and what they do and what they like to do. And some are mean, some are nasty, some supposedly there's all these different things they say that could happen and where they fall in. So
yeah, this is the
something's out there. It's definitely not nothing.
This is another way to kind of put this in a simple, like, pop culture, kind of like something we all kind of know. We can say Deshaun Watson, the football player for the Browns, the quarterback, has 30 sexual assault civil cases, right? So it's kind of hard to explain that away. You know what I mean? Like it's 30 eyewitness accounts that say this thing happened. And I do think that there is something to that.
Right.
I 100%, and as I've said to you before, I 100% think there's something to that.
Okay, so then if there's 30 cases, what do you call this man? You just call him a potentially convicted person, or
well,
like
it definitely the word definitely starts with an R.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying. So if you have all these things that are like,
no, I agree. Okay. I'm with you on that. And so I do think there's something there, but like it's still, to me, even with all of that, and I don't know what your evidence is yet, but even with that, I still have to hear it, because we're not talking about somebody who was sexually assaulting women. Like we're talking about a little different.
But even still, we're still like, it's words. And
Yeah.
this person's not in this room. We probably could meet some of these people if we really wanted to, but like, it's just somebody telling a story. And enough people tell a story. Maybe.
On that really quick, I just remembered I gotta you and I had a text message. I gotta look here real quick because you and I talked about something. We're texting back and forth, and I just want to say something on the podcast.
What?
Because I said I was gonna do it. Hold on a second here. Where was it? Where was it? We're just talking about what was his name from last time.
Oh, the guy, our last guest. Our last.
Here it is. So me and Nick were at the last episode we did. If you've listened to it, if anybody's listened to it, if anybody listens to this at all, I texted Nick, and I'm just gonna kind of read this because it was a conversation we had. I said, "Hey, I've been thinking about it since yesterday, and I feel bad about Henry. It could be in my head, but it may have seemed like I was attacking his character, and that's not really how I want to go about things. I do want to say that I really apologize if anybody felt like I was really being unfair to Henry, and I felt like maybe I was being unfair to Henry.
I felt like I didn't feel like you're being unfair, but I felt like you had listened to Henry, and then you had time to calculate and like load your pistol up with lots of bullets and be like, okay, I'm gonna fire all my shit on this dude.
There were parts of Henry's story that didn't have the detail that I needed, and parts that maybe didn't make the most sense to me.
Right.
You know, and I want to apologize to if Henry ever hears this, or anybody that loves Henry or their family members. It's nothing personal, and I apologize. And you know, I'm not saying that I believe everything that he said, but I'm not calling him a liar, and I don't want anybody to think that that's what I was doing.
Okay.
So, I want to just get that out of the way.
Henry was interesting. I thought. Yeah. I'm not saying
I would get along great with Henry. I'd buy Henry a beer at a bar, and I'd probably kick it with Henry. Henry's a great dude.
Cool.
You know, I'm open-minded. So.
All right. So let's start off.
I've got these 2 rules. If we need to stop and add another rule, then we'll discuss that.
Yeah, I don't have any rules to the thing. Yeah. I want to hear your reaction when I give you or present this stuff to you.
All right.
So Sonia Zohar, and she's on a lot of my stuff comes from Flash of Beauty. I like all of my stuff because I really like this channel. I like their interviews. I like their videography. I like everything they do. They're not local, but they're like in Oregon, and
that's local enough.
They're pretty good. They're pretty thorough. They're at the top of the YouTube kind of game of like presenting Bigfoot facts, or not facts, stuff. I don't know what you're gonna say. Presenting ideas. So this woman, so she has another interview that came out later that I watched it. I thought it was a different person, but anyway. This is 26 minutes, and we're gonna talk to why not. She talks about why not to take casts. Let's see.
I know that giraffes and tigers are, and I think there's a handful of others that we do know that uses it. Someone asked me one time why I don't take casts. And I'm like, because if a cast proves something, Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum would have proved it a long time ago. He has thousands of casts. But the real reason is this. In order to make a cast credible, you have to have dermal ridges. That's how you identify something. You can have an outline of something and go, yeah, I know it's a cougar, but unless you have some sort of dermal ridges, or you know, a primate that has dermal ridges, you can't identify it. You cannot make a positive ID. So the cast that Jimmy Chilcutt had dermal ridges, and that makes all the difference. But no, I'm not going to carry all the stuff to have a cast to be in a substrate that will not produce dermal ridges. That just makes no sense. And if a cast that doesn't produce dermal ridges was bona fide, then like I said, Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum has thousands of them. We proved the species. One of the reasons why I asked if you want the whole picture is because the only thing I have as a researcher is my own word and my credibility. And so sometimes I break these stories up so much, I just don't want anybody to think that I said it one way at one place and another way at another.
She brings up that issue, and I was like, oh, maybe this is interesting to present to.
I think she makes a good point. Yeah. Right. Actually, I think there is a good point to be made. I think there's a middle ground here. So I do think it's important to collect all the evidence that you can collect wherever you can collect it. I understand where she's coming in with the dermal ridges. I got to look into this. She say there was a cast with ridges? Was that Meldrum's cast?
Yeah. No, it was somebody else's cast.
I'll get that tag from either. I want to look at that. I want to research that. So I don't disagree with her on this, but I think that there's not a lot of times where you're looking at maybe necessarily a single print. Like it's not just one by itself. You might have 2 or 3. Yeah. So I think, preserve one. but definitely grab a cast of the other. So I just think when you're collecting evidence and you're trying to build a case for something, more evidence you have, the better.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah. So again, we don't have dermal ridges. We maybe have dermal ridges. Even if we do have dermal ridges, we still haven't proven anything.
No,
from
not
that.
at all.
So
well, we can prove, as she said, and she's correct. I've actually heard this with other stuff, and this is a true thing. Like when they're trying to identify primates in Africa and stuff like that, dermal ridges do help identify that something is a primate.
Right.
And I think there's an assumption that Bigfoot would be a primate,
Right.
of some kind. Or we're primates, right?
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
something humanoid. Yeah.
Okay, so that's one. Now she talks later on. Talks about leaving. Well, she leaves crystals in the forest for the Bigfoot, and that is because it's something that is from nature. It can just it's a rock. It's supposed to be there. So she left I'm not gonna play this, but she left a crystal that was like in the shape of like a heart, sort of, and then she got back later, not right away, but a rock that was in the same shape of that heart. Doesn't explain anything. But
No, I mean that's kind of. I mean,
okay.
but why leave crystals? Also, like it's kind of a like. What does that mean to Bigfoot?
It doesn't. Well, if you really want to go into crystal energy, and it's supposedly these rocks have energy and they store rocks and stones. All of them have. You can go deep on gemstones and what they mean. And
It's a bit of a leap.
what they block and all this other stuff. And okay.
Sure. But my question is how, you know,
I can play it for you if you want. We can go.
No. Well, actually, let's do that and let me talk about it.
Okay,
yeah,
let's
yeah.
see. It's 34. Here we go.
What's that time?
It was huge.
34:15.
For leaving crystals.
It was huge. It was I promise you, I know why some people have these encounters and never go in the forest again. What I was conceiving is something's coming up from behind me and it's going to run over me. That's what I was like. Something was just coming at me and then it just stopped. And the boom to me was just something just stopped, like it stomped to let me know that I'm right behind you. But I mean, I know I'm making that up from my experience, but that's how I experienced it. Like I knew something.
She's talking about her experience. I marked this at 34 minutes, but I guess it's not. But
That's okay.
anyway, she's talking about when she was. I don't want to listen to this whole interview.
No,
She has she has two experiences where the Bigfoot. She thinks in her mind that maybe this isn't a Bigfoot because she was a skeptic going into this.
Okay.
Until she had this experience where the cadence of the movement behind her, one day, matched the second day in a way that she was like, okay, I hear you, I understand. And she also understands that this thing doesn't want to hurt her, but could if they needed to.
Sure.
She draws these, again, she's drawing leaps. She's putting things together, but not evidence, but she's just talking about her experience.
So let's just have a conversation about the crystals thing, though,
Okay.
just really quick, because the idea of even just taking taking the leap to leave the crystals, why? What do crystals mean to
A lot of
Bigfoot?
people talk about gifting and
For sure.
trinkets and all that. Supposedly there's other evidence of people getting trinkets from Bigfoot brought back
Okay.
to them after they have left the gift.
Okay.
So gifting, and some people call it baiting, or like they talk about leaving something for the animal and then the animal being kind and giving them something back.
This is definitely something I want to, if we're going to do this experience, it's definitely something I want to use as an experiment.
Oh shit.
You
Well,
know?
okay. So if we go to ESETI, we will not be baiting or doing anything like that. But if we go on our own and we start to really get into this shit and we go out to a spot
Sure.
where we feel it's hot, I'm 100% into that.
I like the idea.
But be ready for some bullshit coming back.
Dude, I am totally ready for some bullshit. It's nothing antagonistic, but I don't mind some of this stuff that the claims. If we're gonna do like a research trip, you gotta investigate.
Yeah.
Right. So if somebody claims that this is something that can happen or does happen or regularly happens, it's definitely something we should explore and take notes on.
Okay. But so in that breath, I'm going to pause right here and talk about your intention and vibration when you enter on a quest like this has to be in a certain, I guess, I don't know.
I'm not looking to disprove Bigfoot.
No, I'm just saying, like, you have to be of certain pure heartedness. I don't know how I want to say this, but like,
Sure.
you can't be like, if we had say it was just me and you and somebody else, and so the other person was like, secretly like, I'm gonna kill this fucking Bigfoot and bring it home.
I'm
right?
definitely not gonna kill this Bigfoot.
I'm just saying, but he never told us. That guy never told us that he was gonna do that, and then he's like, I just want to bring this for protection. And meanwhile, we didn't know that his intention was to hurt a Bigfoot, and then we get out to the forest, the Bigfoot's never going to show up because supposedly, I'm just saying, they could sense that and they're like, fuck that guy.
So this is another, like, I go back to my 2 rules, right? This
Yeah,
is,
that's not my evidence. I'm just telling you the stories.
100%, but it's a convenient leap of logic from my standpoint. Okay. So as we talk about that, I always bring in like where I see a hole or a pinprick in something, and so that's a leap to logically. We brought a group of people out where we had an encounter and it didn't happen. Oh well, this guy over here,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, totally.
So you weren't pure of heart or pure of mind.
Yeah.
I mean, we gotta. My problem with some of these explanations that we get here is that, you know, we don't even. Nobody has definitively proven that this thing exists, right? Like Bigfoot's a thing. Yet, you know, you got to be pure of mind and you got to bring crystals and like it's just. You get what I'm saying?
A lot of people go out looking for Bigfoot, and like 99% of them don't see anything all the time.
Yeah.
Like all the time, they go out and they see nothing.
Yeah.
So, I'm not expecting to see anything
For sure.
but
For sure.
I'm telling you all this stuff. Anyway, so it's
I would love to discover Bigfoot. It would be like
I think we are.
Yeah.
So I think next year we go do one trip, and then eventually we're gonna get acclimated enough where we can both go out on like a Saturday, and we'll spend a Saturday night in the woods, and we're gonna fucking find something.
as long as you're not trying to prove Bigfoot exists,
I'm not trying to prove
not
anything.
trying to disprove, then we're good.
We're not trying to prove. I would go out with the intention of I want to have an experience. I don't want to prove anything.
Yeah.
Like, and I want to keep my pants in order because I don't want to shit myself and like.
I think honestly that's the most honest way to approach something like this, because again, like a lot of people when they talk Bigfoot, or I shouldn't even say a lot of people, the few times I've had conversations with Bigfoot believers, you can't convince them otherwise. You can't have a logical conversation,
Right.
you know. And I'm not saying, I did tell you I don't believe
Right.
that Bigfoot exists. That's not me saying that I'm not open to it. And as I told you, I'm not open to the possibility. I just currently, based on everything, I don't have sufficient evidence.
Right.
Personally.
But I don't understand how you could. All right, so 40 minutes here. We're talking about different kinds of evidence.
We have a being that is in the biological record that is a 10 feet tall, upright walking ape. We have,
Oh wait, what's she talking about?
like I
Whoa.
said,
Let's go back.
there is a ton of evidence for the existence of Sasquatch. Like I said, we do have Gigantopithecus.
There we
We
go.
have a being that is in the biological record that is a 10 feet tall, upright walking ape. We have thousands of track casts that Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum collects. We have numerous reports from all kinds of people over many years in the United States, as well as a complete cultural record of all indigenous cultures. There are hundreds of names for Sasquatch. The Salish here in this area call it, or the Salish in BC call it Dejunaqua. The Lakota call it Shiatanka. And they don't talk about this being as being separate from us. Matter of fact, a lot of them say it's our brother in the forest, and a lot of them will actually explain how there's the fox, the bear, and the Sasquatch. It's not different for them. It's really Western culture coming into this area, not believing. And
Okay, so basically she's saying there's tons of stuff out there, and all the indigenous cultures that have been here before us a long time are saying that yes, this is something that exists, and we've been a part of with this being for a while. It's our brother in the forest. It's there.
Sure. Absolutely. I think.
So wait, what's that worth for you, by the way? Like a
Oh, I've got a thread here.
old time, not old time. The Native American. What's that worth for you?
So I want to jump on that in a second here,
Okay.
but I do have a thread here. This
Okay.
is definitely something. Gigantopithecus is a real
100%.
100% real thing. I just want to put that out there. It's absolutely. I had to look it up. 10-foot tall upright walking is it's more like a gorilla. So
Girls walk up, right?
they can walk upright, but they predominantly actually walk kind of hunched over with their
Knuckles.
front and so.
Supposedly, so Bigfoot can also.
100%, right? So
I think he favors upright though.
yeah, so definitely that's a thread I want to go down and research on my own.
Okay.
So I wrote that down. I got
So
it
wait,
right
what
here.
are you researching Gigantopithecus or?
Yeah. I just because I need to know more.
Okay.
Right,
fair.
like and see that now we're getting reasonable. It's a reasonable thing. Like this falls into my reasonable explanation category, right?
Okay.
So allegedly extinct 300,000 years ago, right? Like or lived 300,000 years ago. Might have went extinct from my brief research I just looked up 200,000 years ago.
Yeah.
That's that's a geologically recent event,
Yeah.
right? So That's not me saying that I think that this is still a thing that exists on the planet, but I remember when we discovered the coelacanth in...
What the fuck is that?
Oh, a coelacanth? You don't remember? So, a coelacanth is like one of the oldest fish on record, and they're thought to have been completely extinct. And they drug one up from Madagascar in the 90s. What? Yeah, in the water. So,
That's cool.
Extinct species do get discovered. We don't know everything everywhere. So, I would think it would be hard for us to miss something of this size.
Well, we haven't, because people are talking shit about it. Like, I was out in the woods. I saw this motherfucker.
I mean, I think that's an interpretation. I don't think that's enough for me to go, this thing's still alive. But that's a thread for me to go down. That's not convincing me that Bigfoot.
So the thing to say that it's still alive is that we have one dead. Is that the?
Not necessarily.
But everybody says it's still there.
Well, you know,
Native Americans said it was there. These
wanna-
people that are now going to the woods and like, yo, there's some shit we saw.
I want to come back to that in a second here. I think we had a podcast, either the last one or the one before, where I said, you know, they kind of had a pretty reasonable explanation for the Loch Ness Monster being like a species of eel.
Yeah.
And they can find the DNA, but they still haven't captured like necessarily that eel. But we know that it's highly likely that eel lives in that lake. And
That was a reasonable explanation.
Yes, to me, absolutely, yeah.
That it's an eel.
Well, why wouldn't it be? I mean,
I feel like that's bullshit. That's a leap.
mean,
those are leaps that we're not making, that you can't make, just saying like this because they called it. That's the same shit.
well, they found the DNA of the animal.
Of an animal.
No, of an eel, of the specific eel.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we have one picture of Nessie that looks like this thing.
Well, yeah. So a lot of what we got, just gonna draw this picture here real quick. A lot of what we get when we see Nessie is this.
All you see is like this little thing.
Yeah,
that's it.
This is the image. That could be an eel very easily. But this is not the evidence. It's the DNA.
Okay, but you have a DNA of an eel that lives in a lake.
Yeah.
So?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that's...
It's. I'm not saying it is that's the explanation for what happened there, right? What I'm saying is that is a reasonable explanation. I'm not saying that it's the explanation.
Okay, so
I'm saying it's a reasonable explanation.
I feel like so this is just for the record. I feel like you made a pretty big leap there to say that, yes, this evidence that I have of DNA, just DNA of this animal that's in this lake, equals picture explanation.
Sure. I mean, why do you think that's a leap?
I think because you didn't experience it. Nobody has anything to say like, wait, hey, we only have one thing, like one picture.
Well, kind of going back to what I said earlier was, you know, kind of the scenario we had where we've got hair samples, we've got casts that we can make where we have an unknown DNA, and we can go, okay, I know something that I've never discovered before, or I'm not ready to say this is Bigfoot, but that's a reasonable explanation for that situation.
Right.
Like that enters the realm of being reasonable.
Explanation.
Because I have evidence that I built. Now, so we go back to Loch Ness. If I've got DNA of an eel that can get that size.
Oh, so you're saying the evidence to us going up on tracks, broken trees, and saying it's Bigfoot is reasonable or not reasonable?
It depends on the evidence, right? Like if we come up onto that exact same scenario, right? Like, and just by itself, we walk up on it, there's a broken tree and there's footsteps. No, that's not reasonable. No, but if when we're collecting evidence there, you and I carefully, we can't find human evidence.
Okay, so we check it. And
we check that off.
Not bears, not anything we thought
Not bears, not anything
Nobody
else.
knows.
We collect hair samples. We send them out. Those
Same
hair
thing.
samples come back unidentified.
Yeah.
We collect DNA out of the footprints, unidentifiable, right?
Okay.
I'm not 100% saying that's Bigfoot, but Bigfoot starts to become a reasonable explanation because we're building a case.
Okay.
Right? Same thing with Loch Ness. I'm not making a leap here. If we've got an eel, if we got an animal that can explain this, that lives reasonably in this lake, and we have DNA of that animal, I mean, that's pretty good evidence.
Okay, but I'm not gonna lock it up.
No,
and say,
I'm
like,
not either.
Okay, cool.
No.
So
But
I thought that.
No, that's not what I was saying at all.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, and that's the same thing with Gigantopithecus here, right? Like that's me saying, and I know people are gonna think, oh, he's just going back on what he said. That's not at all. Gigantopithecus starts to become, under the right conditions with the right evidence, a much more reasonable explanation. I haven't done enough research.
Explanation for what?
For Bigfoot, than to me.
Okay.
Right? Because now we're not making up an animal. We have an animal
Yeah.
that existed in the area
Copy.
within the geologically a really short period of time ago,
And,
right?
It's not here. It's fucking way over there.
I
Wherever
mean,
the hell that
but
was.
300,000 years ago, there was a land bridge.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
Like
okay.
starting adding up evidence.
Fair. Okay.
Now let's go back to the Native American thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Native American stories, like it's an all or none here, right? It's an all or none.
Okay.
And I'm not attacking anybody's culture. I don't want anybody to think I'm attacking their culture. I'm not a Native American.
Right.
Right. So, well, I'm not. I mean, maybe some DNA deep way down, but I'm not. I didn't grow up that way. I didn't grow up in their culture. It would be no different than somebody Native American speaking on my culture, which there really isn't any, so it'd be fair game. But if I did, right, it'd be no different the other way, them having the same criticisms of not believing what I do. A lot of Native American stories are word of mouth, right? And again, I'm not attacking anybody when I say this, but if I tell you a story and then you tell somebody else the same story and they tell somebody else the same story and they tell somebody else the same story, that story becomes exaggerated, right?
100%. Okay.
So that's all folk, and we can actually go and talk about totem poles and what totem poles represent.
So you're wiping it out off the plate.
I'm willing to add it. This is difficult. I don't want to disregard it. I don't want to throw it away. I'm willing to anecdotally add it.
Okay.
It's not evidence though.
Anecdotally. Oh, I wish we had like a whiteboard. So anecdotally should be worth something, like a half a point, and then we should like this is worth a full point or something like that. Yeah,
well, I don't think anecdotal evidence is ever worth anything, but it definitely like it can connect things. I mean, by definition, anecdotal evidence is unreliable.
Okay, but how much anecdotal evidence do you need to you come up with something?
If all I have is anecdotal evidence,
Then
I
you
will
got nothing?
never come up with anything.
Okay. All right, fair. Anyway, let's see.
If we're putting somebody on trial right now,
Oh, you can't do that.
right? Like, I mean, but that's the way we kind of have to approach this. If we're putting this on trial,
So someone's gonna go to jail.
well,
I know,
whatever.
not for what we're talking about, but I'm saying I know what you're saying. So
But
you're
that's the level that we kind of have to approach that,
Fair,
right? Like,
fair.
you know, if somebody gets up and says, "I heard a story that you did this," like that's just not. I need a this firsthand account from her is going to be more reliable than an anecdotal story that was retold over and over and over again. And this is, God, I feel, you're just putting me in bad spots here. I just find another Native American story not related to Bigfoot, right? Like, and again,
Well, they're all do with the spirits and stuff like that. A lot of those things.
1000%, right? So, and that's not saying it's not real or not true, because that's their belief and that's their religion, and that's where they.
Yeah.
And I'm never.
But they have a ton of stories that are about other things, but they're all spirit realm type stuff.
Absolutely, right? And so if that's not something, it's not something you can prove. It's not something you disprove, right? You can't expect me to use that as evidence for me because that's not my culture,
Okay, that's a valid pushback.
right?
It's not my culture, so I don't believe it. While
I
you
respect it.
100% believe it because that's your culture and you maybe experience it on some kind of other level.
Yep.
That's fair.
And that's
But it's not. It's not nothing.
It is to me.
Okay.
Only because, again, like that's not my culture.
Fair.
It's not my, and just
It's not my culture either, but enough people saying shit is enough for me to be like, you might have something.
Sure, absolutely.
And I'll just put that on top of my sandwich and then give me some more of this and that.
But I want to say this: I feel this way about pretty much all religion. So
I don't, well,
I do.
no, I agree. Religion is, that's a whole nother podcast, bro.
I think there's absolutely truth, and there's absolutely stories that are buried in all word of mouth folklore from every culture on this planet.
Right.
But I think that we definitely make things fantastical sometimes over time.
And we also manipulate them for control purposes.
When they're translated, I want to bring that up too. The Native American language is so unique.
Yeah.
It's not structured like any other language on the planet, and so there's a lot of misinterpretation.
Okay, fair. All right, we got to move on. I don't want to spend too much time on her.
No, you're good.
Let's see. So association.
This might be a two-parter, guys.
I have association of predator, which I think we talked about a little bit before. Oh, yeah. Let's go to 45 minutes.
I definitely am gonna.
She talks about why keep it a secret.
I think this is fantastic right here.
45 minutes.
Keep the government or anybody saying that Sasquatch doesn't exist? Well, of course, the obvious go-to is for environmental impact reasons. If you have a large primate in North America in our forests, then you can't log because that is their territory, that is their environment. And if you keep destroying their environment, you will kill an endangered species. And obviously, since we can't find them, they are an endangered species.
Okay, stop right there because that's basically her argument.
So According to who, they're an endangered species.
Let's just say we said yes, Bigfoot does exist. We don't know about it, and it lives in this area. She says that if that's true, and the government has acknowledged it, then we can't be there.
It's a leap to a leap to a leap.
Okay, but like let's just say the government said yes, we have one in captivity. We got it from this area in Oregon where it's a logging area. Shutting it down.
I would first have to believe that the government has one. And then I would have to believe that the government has deemed that they're an endangered species. And then I'd have to believe that that's the reason why the government won't disclose that they exist.
Well, hold on. Time out. Let's play this one at a time.
Yep.
So the government in this world, right? The government says we have one.
Yep.
We got it from Oregon in this logging area.
If we're playing the hypothetical. Yes. Yeah.
So now, because we got it from this area, this 1,000 square foot of logging area is shut down. You guys are done here. XYZ logging, kick rocks.
Sure.
Okay. Now, if we find another one, we find evidence in other places, and that keeps happening, she's saying that.
In your hypothetical situation,
Yeah.
absolutely believable scenario.
Okay, so why is it not believable in your real world?
Because I have to make the jump that our government has captured one.
Okay. Yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's the first jump.
Yeah.
Right? Which is
But she's saying the government won't acknowledge it because of this cascading effect.
it's an explanation for why the government won't admit that they exist. And it's no different than going back to earlier when we were talking about, you and I were talking about like, oh, we didn't see one tonight because this guy's got a
Yeah,
bad attitude,
true,
right?
true.
It's kind of the same logic. It's an explanation for why, the government won't acknowledge this or whatever. I've got to make a lot of leaps to get there.
Sure. Let me make sure she's not the only thing she's talking about. Maybe she said something else.
So that would be one reason why science is not accepting all of the hard evidences and all of the evidences that we have to date about them. As long as there's been human history, there have been giants in our history. The Gilgamesh. King Gilgamesh had to go into the forest. Well, he did this on his own volition, and the gods were not pleased with him about doing this.
I don't know. What
He went into the cedar forest and he killed the guardian
that's
of the
where you
forest,
lose
who
people
was
right there.
a big
Ogre,
ape-like creature.
It's a story.
It's a story. It's not science.
It's not, and it's not science. I agree, but I guess.
But those stories do come from somewhere. That is a folklore story,
that's
just like Native
religion,
American,
exactly.
right? And there's
it's in
probably
the Bible, right?
I don't think Gilgamesh is in the Bible. I want to say Gilgamesh is either like a Nordic. I want to say it's a. I can look it up.
I have no clue, so I don't know.
But I know that Gilgamesh is an epic. That is a story
Right.
that was a folklore, like a word of mouth story.
Right.
And I've read Gilgamesh. It's been a long time, but I've read it. It's not science.
No, of course it's not science. No.
So,
Okay.
but she conflated that, right? She said
she
there's
made
always been giants.
huge leap.
And again,
Well, they're giants, not Bigfoot giants, but there are this. It's fine.
there are large animals that are apes.
Not animals.
Yep.
I'm talking fucking humans.
Well, animals. We're animals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm talking like supposedly there's been bones found of giant humanoids, like fucking giant, like 10, 15 foot.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
By the Nazis in the 40s. Yeah, I've heard this.
I remember
This
the
is-
story,
This has
like,
to do with.
I've seen pictures. I don't know. I didn't go. I remember showing this to my friend and him just blowing me off. And then me hearing about it multiple times over and over again in my research as I've gone deeper and deeper into this kind of cavern.
So if you don't mind going on like a brief little segue,
Sure,
and
do it.
I'm not fully prepared
We're all
with
about
this.
this.
I'm not fully prepared to talk about this, but
Yeah.
you know what? If it's interesting enough, I'll bring it back in here and talk about it next time. But we actually, it's actually, we can see it in pop culture too. Indiana Jones. Have you ever seen Indiana Jones? Okay, so in Indiana Jones, he's going after the Nazis.
Right.
Right. Well, he's not going after the Nazis, but they're always kind of a
the
thorn in
way,
his
yeah.
side, right?
Yeah.
They're collecting these artifacts, and it's lost by time, but there's a historical accuracy to that, right? Like not Indiana Jones, but of Nazis going after religious artifacts.
The U.S. government does that shit too, bro.
Absolutely. But this in particular has such an effect on modern pop culture. It's very interesting. So Ultima Thule, I think is what it's called. Ultima Thule. I want to write that down because I've got to look this up. So this giants thing, and I don't remember exactly where it was. I think it's Ultima Thule is what it is. But the Nazis actually were going out and looking for all of these religious artifacts because they actually thought there was this like the secret race or whatever. And what's kind of a side thing out of this, and again, I'll go into this and look at this, but that's where a lot of that giants belief comes from, and those made up, and they are 15-foot tall giant skeletons.
Made up.
The human ones, right?
Made up.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you what. I'll
Because there's multiple of them. There's not just one.
I'll bring this back to you.
I'm going back. I'm going back to alien shit. Like, this
for sure.
And this is where this knowledge comes from. That the like Anunnaki or other alien races.
People always love the Anunnaki.
I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm saying, let's just say it. There's been archaeological findings of extremely large human looking things.
I will. I'll bring this in. The reason I bring it up, what's really, really fascinating about this is actually the idea that the lost city of Atlantis actually is a real place. It's not. It's a thing that.
Oh God!
Hold on.
It's coming up next, bro. We're doing Atlantis next.
You're gonna hate this.
Okay.
It's a thing that literally the Nazis brought into pop culture. Atlantis is a made-up thing that Homer made up to explain why the culture he belonged to was so great, and he needed a culture to describe, and he had to make this great culture, but he ran into a problem. He ran into a huge problem with this culture, and the problem was if that culture was better than the one he was in, then why wouldn't people want to be in that one? So he destroys it in the book. It's a story. It really is. And there's no actual... We'll do this. I would love to do this. But I believe that the thing with the giants, and I could be... again, we'll do this.
Okay, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Bring up a photo of these things that look... I don't know. I just looked up large human archaeological findings, and it shows these.
Let's click on that Smithsonian magazine.
Which one here?
Is that actually Smith? That's not the Smithsonian. It's made to look like the Smithsonian Museum, but
China. Smithsonian.
Do me a favor, real quick. Can you look up the Smithsonian magazine real quick? I want to check the source.
Like look it up.
Yeah, look up what it is. Like, let's do a quick background. I know we're not gonna huge segue.
Okay, cool. What is the Smith?
Yeah.
Thank God for Google.
Magazine.
It's slow. I don't know why.
And I'm totally fine with being completely out of my element on this one. But I'm questioning the source.
I don't know why this computer's so slow right now.
Oh, it's not a big deal. I'm asking for a lot here. I could be doing the same on my phone right now. You might have spelled it wrong.
I did, but oh God, why? Okay. It's talking magazine available on the web.
Is it associated with the Smithsonian Museum? Because I think that's the association they're trying to make here. Give me the quick.
Which one? This one?
No, the Wikipedia. Yeah, I just want to see if it's associated with Smithsonian Museum.
It looks like it.
It definitely looks like it.
That's true.
Let's see if it gives us any. Oh, no, look at that. Smithsonian Institution. Well, send me the article. I'd love to read the article.
I don't even know if this is real.
Yeah, no. I just want to check the source. Send me the article. I'd love to read it.
Let's see where we're at back.
I don't know anything about giant humans.
Okay.
And again, not saying.
Neither do I. I'm just saying.
But I can't tell how big that guy is.
Neither can I. But the photo is a little misleading. But
Does it give us a size?
Let's see.
6'2".
That's not very big.
No, it's not. See, that's my point, though, right? 6'2".
Oh, 1.9. That's crazy. Okay.
That's so. This is the mind of a skeptic.
The average height was 5.5.
Yeah, so this would be a giant human, but you see how misleading that. And now, if I put that next to another photo that pops up at a search and of giant humans, and you see that, it adds validity.
Oh wait, hold on a second.
Look at that.
Native regions have reached the height of 9'6".
So what they're
9'6" is big.
But so this is another thing right here. What they're saying is that legend has it.
Okay. Confucius,
a native of the region, is said to have reached 9'6". So legend has it, right?
Well, anyway, I don't want to be. This is not a giant giant human podcast.
Well, it is.
Okay. Yeah, it is. You're right. It is.
But no, mind of a skeptic, and also combined with the analysis side of me, and I didn't do a ton into that, but I'm already just jumping into that. That's a couple things I pulled right off the top. But that's also a tactic that gets used right there, right? Like frequently, you've got, if you looked around that one image that I pointed out right there that we went down that rabbit hole on, we verified where it came from, right? Like, okay, it's legitimate. And then we dove into the article, 6'2". And so then we look at all the images that were around
large for the day. basically.
If we look at every image that was around that, you know, you get
This one looks huge right here. This looks like a.
but it also doesn't look real.
It looks a little fake, yeah. It does
Right.
look a little fake. But.
So these two over here at the top, those definitely look more real, right? That one doesn't look real. It's like the color palette doesn't match.
This head looks fake.
Yeah, the perspective doesn't match, right? The way the angle on that photo makes that guy look like he's 25 feet tall.
Yeah.
He's 6'2".
Right.
You know, that's all.
Okay, fair. Well, I didn't do a ton of research, but maybe I'll come across something that.
Giant human right there. Look at that.
Which one? This one?
Yeah. So, but even that's not very big.
Archaeologists organizing giant human skeleton excavation.
Yeah.
I don't know. Free
Oh
pick.
boy, I don't know about that.
This looks shady. The whole. Why don't people just make good websites that look legit? Like
That was what I was trying to get to with that Smithsonian Mag one. I was just trying to make sure.
Okay. Anyway.
But yeah.
Okay. Let's get back to where we were at. So,
That was a fun.
Okay.
I will do you a favor.
Yeah.
Two things. I'm definitely going to look at this Gigantopithecus because that is interesting. And then I'll come back to you with more Ultima Thule.
Okay.
You know,
So I'm gonna leave Sonia alone for
Yep.
a little while. I think she brings some good points.
I like Sonia.
She was good. Did we go to 48 minutes?
Sonia does a great job explaining her reasons.
48 minutes I have. 48, 38. What do we know? 48, 38. Let's just listen.
We're seeing something that we recognize. All I know is it's a non-human bipedal primate in the North American forest. I know it's nocturnal. I know it has a language. This would be reported by Ron Moorhead and the Sierra Sounds. They stayed up at that camp
Yeah,
for
they had a lot of
almost
sound
40 years
recordings of-
recording sounds that have been proven to be a language. Lots of people have sorts of words that they say. Mike Patterson from Sasquatch, Ontario, same thing. He has human words he hears from the group that he researches. They move fast. One of the things a researcher told me early on in the game, he asked me to be ready for what I was going to experience because he said, you can't track it, you can't kill it, and it can move so fast you won't see it. And after 13 years of research, every word he said was true.
Okay. Now, before we move on to the next guy, I want to tell you about her experience. She was fearlessly walking, doing the research, did not believe it existed, came into contact with one, and there's this thing called ultrasound. Are you familiar with ultrasound?
Absolutely.
Okay, so she was supposedly ultrasounded by the Bigfoot and had the laggy, lethargic, muscle,
Sure.
lactic acid, the whole thing for like 10, 12 days afterwards. That's evidence too, actually. If
Sure.
you're saying that, I had an experience with something and I was ultrasounded by this, and these are the physical ailments of my body after I came off of that.
Did she get that? Was that medically documented?
Yes.
Okay. No, that's
Yeah.
great. I'd love to look that up.
Yeah.
So she does some things. She does this again, and I have to call this in a question because the Gilgamesh thing for sure. That
It's a story, but we know it's a story. She knows the story too.
For sure.
Yeah.
So ultrasounding. Give me a sec here. I'm just writing. I have an idea I want to run by you at the end of this. That's a great information. So again, I'm never going to attack somebody's personal account of something.
Yeah.
Because what you believe and what you see and what your perception is your reality, no matter what I believe. That's irrelevant, right?
Yes.
The proven she makes statements. It's a proven language by who? Who's saying it's a proven language?
The people who have researched it that long to listen to it.
Are they Bigfoot researchers, or are they language, or like what's their
point.
credentials matter?
Good point.
Right? Just a quick little side story kind of thing, and my ex potential father-in-law, if that had worked out, one time got in an argument with it didn't end up working out. My mother-in-law broke up with them.
I was
but-
fucking doing the math, man. I'm like, what the hell is that?
That was a confused. Let me re-say that. My mother-in-law's boyfriend.
Okay,
That's
fair.
much better.
Fair.
I really thought they were going to get married.
Yeah.
It's a confusing way to put it. My brain works very interestingly sometimes.
It does.
I'm aware of that. Anyway, be a teacher. It'll do it to you. He had this belief that Elon Musk is an engineer. Right. And so I said, he's not an engineer. And this is me not talking down about Elon Musk. I said, he's not an engineer.
Okay.
And he goes, he is an engineer. I was like, no, he's not. And I was like, what engineering school did Elon Musk go to? And he was like, well, I think MIT. And I was like, okay, look it up. Prove it to me. He didn't. He never went to any engineering school. So the immediate double down from him was, well, you don't have to have a degree in engineering to be an engineer. You do. You got to have, there's a level of credential that says you belong to this community. And you and I have talked about this.
Well, yeah, but you don't, like, you could be a carpenter. There's no schools you have to go to be a carpenter sometimes.
You could be a carpenter's a little different. But that's not an engineer. No. Right?
You're engineering a deck.
I mean, I've heard this argument from people when it's been a safety issue before. Yeah. But even you and I, like, you don't get to just say you're an electrician. No. Right? Like, you are credentialed. Yes. As such. You don't get to just go, well, I know electrical, I'm an electrician. It doesn't work that way, right? And so kind of the thing on that, you can say that it's proven to be a language, and I could say I've proven something to you, but there needs to be a credential that backs that up. Okay. That's a tough thing for me to say, because before, I apologize I interrupted you, because I do think that, much like Max, when we watched the podcast about with Joe Rogan about what's his name? Oh man, we know we're going way back.
We know you're talking about. Go ahead.
He had a criticism. Weinstein. Yes. He had a criticism of the scientific community, not always including everybody. Right. Right. Very and I think 100%. Right. And so I do think that there is an academic arrogance, with some things.
You're not one of us because you didn't. But at the same breath, that person, all these academics put in time. Yep. These people also put in time.
It's true.
Maybe not at the same level, but they have put in time and they do know something. You can't just dismay.
No, not at all. But like Max said, was saying to Terrence Howard, that's what it was. It just took me a little while to get there. What he was saying in that thing is you're onto something, but you don't understand what you're onto. Right. Right. And that Kai would say the same thing here. If you don't understand where something can fool you, or where something can lead you down the wrong valley, or the wrong, around the wrong turn or corner, you don't know that you might be following something that they've already either found, and that's vice versa also. True. Because they also get themselves ingrained into doing things a certain way and disregard things. And we have plenty of evidence of that happening throughout history. 100%. I'm still leaning towards academics on this, though. Typically I will lean towards them over this person that says this thing happened. At some point,
the tides will have to shift, and people who outside of academia will prove to academia that you've been wrong. It's not going to take 1 year. It's not going to take 10 years. It's going to take a long time for them to give up
it does happen.
The reins.
It does. It regularly. I mean, it does happen. Yeah. It's just it takes extraordinary evidence sometimes, because some of these things are extraordinary that people make claims of, and we don't have the ability. A lot of times in science, when that happens and they go back and say this person actually was right, it just took you were a visionary, and maybe that could be the case here. I'm going to lean towards doubting it, because 99.9% of the time that is the case. Okay. Right. Fair. But.
All right, so let's get off of Sonia, because she's done.
Sonia's great. Appreciate it, Sonia.
Okay, cool. Now this guy. His name is.
I owe you a beer, Sonia. Hit me up.
Flash of Beauty. Joe Bielart is this guy. Now this guy, he has some interesting, like, horses is his thing.
Horses are his thing.
Not his thing, but this is where I'm gonna.
He's a rancher.
I'm gonna shine on him. No, I'll let him talk. Let's see.
In the Cascade Mountains in our area. You should be able to, I encourage people, you should be able to know the basic sounds that each variety of those owls make, because they can be confusing.
Bigfoot mimics animals in the forest, and he does a somewhat horrible job of it. Not horrible, but supposedly people who know these things can decipher.
So the Mulcahy Library of Animal Sounds at Cornell University is something I cannot overemphasize as a resource. What's the deal with the horses? That is a good question. I've never been a horse person. I don't particularly like them. They burn a lot of hay. They burn twice as much hay as a cow. And you got tractors to do the work, and tractors don't kick. They will run over you, but they don't kick. But horses were a mainstay of human life in North America. Well, obviously for many thousands of years across the earth. Animals in the forest, Bigfoot is one of them, Sasquatch is one of them, learns to appreciate horses. There's let's start off with, they seem to like horses. In Dmitry Bayanov's book, In the Footsteps of the Russian Snowman, he describes a farmer from his hay mound watching a Almasty come in and braid his horse's manes.
Okay, there. I don't know why they call him an Almasty, but I guess that's what they call him in Russia. I don't know, but
I'm totally listening to you. I'm just looking at something really
Go
quick.
ahead,
I'm
go ahead.
backing up. I'm listening to you. Go ahead.
braided manes is what I'm bringing up here.
Okay.
So the folklore, and he goes into depth about them, and I've heard other people talk about them, and you can go to other Bigfoot rest stops, but like museums, I guess,
Yeah.
and find braided horse manes.
Sure.
Now, the reason why braided horse manes are interesting to me is that the amount of force it would take to braid a horse mane, or that it's in these knots, supposedly that cannot be undone, is astronomical. Supposedly they cannot be unwoven, and there are multiple knots in them. So my question is, what say you? We can listen to some more of what he has to say, or I can just leave it at that, or we can go from there. I don't know. What do you want to do?
Okay. So a couple things hinge on, and I have to do some research, but
course.
I am about 70 to 80% sure that horses are not native to North America.
Okay, they may not be.
Which
Why
would
is
be
that? Why is that?
Which would be a problem for saying, if we're assuming, if we're willing to go back to the Gigantopithecus theory and work that out, there's some crossover.
Okay.
Right, because there were horses in China.
Wait, horses are not natives. Weren't they fucking Indians on horses? Weren't they?
We
beating
brought them here.
No, weren't the Indians whipping our ass with like arrows hanging from the necks? And doing
Again,
all sorts of
I got to do
Comanches?
some research on it because I'm not 100%, but I am fairly certain that horses are not native to the United States. But
So you're saying
again,
Columbus
I don't
came
know.
over here with horses?
Well, I mean, Columbus never landed on the mainland of the United States.
So how did they get here then? Who brought them here? You're saying that
we would have brought them here.
the British?
Well, Europeans, yeah. But again,
I think it's before that.
I'm like 75% sure. I'm not 100% on that. I'm only putting that out there because I have to do my research on
Okay.
that. And they definitely weren't up here in the Northwest,
Okay.
right? Which is an area we're focusing on as being kind of a Bigfoot area.
Okay, but even if they weren't here in the beginning, and they're here now, and the thing that I'm putting forth is, he says that Bigfoot likes horses, and they kind of hang around them, and they like to fucking play with their hair and braid their manes, and the horse seems to like let them do it.
It's interesting.
It's
It's definitely interesting.
Okay, but that's physical evidence of something that a human may or may not have done, but supposedly the force that is put on this thing is.
And it wouldn't break the hair.
That's what I'm confused by too. I'm
Yeah.
confused by all of it.
It seems like an extraordinary claim. I can't refute it one way or the other. I have no evidence.
I know, right? You don't have any
Yeah.
evidence, but you could have the evidence of the actual thing in your hand.
I could have the evidence
We
that
could go and
that
we could see it.
horsehair is braided and I can't undo the knot.
Right, but
Yeah.
it's surrounding claims. Like, so the stories that go with this piece of evidence are, hey, we heard a ruckus out in our yeah, but it comes with a story.
Sure.
Here's the evidence I have, and this evidence comes to. You're shaking your head. But there's multiple. There's like this isn't just horse manes. I saw the other one that I saw was a lot of flags. Like anything that was they were tied up like Memorial Day.
Sure.
They have flags around people's houses, and those were like just fucking knotted with.
I mean, I could knot the shit out of something, man.
Right.
you know.
But usually it could be undone.
I got a pair of shoes at home that I can't undo a knot in.
I know.
I mean,
I get it.
if you got a kid, they've tied a shoelace.
100%. 100%.
And you're like, it's like a pebble.
Right,
You're like,
just-
that's like a solid object
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
So
I get it. Anyways, it's like here and there, but it is a piece of evidence that I was like, maybe this. He talks more like they have to cut him off with scissors. Let's listen a little more.
So let's we haven't really done this. Let's test it really quick.
Go ahead.
Let's test it with our two part. Let's test it with our 2-part check here for our 2 rules we have so far.
Okay, reasonable explanation.
All right, is Bigfoot
A reasonable.
is it a reasonable explanation for braiding him? I mean, is there an alternate, more realistic?
That's the thing. If you say that, if it's an alternate, yes, there's an alternate. But is it a more realistic explanation that humans just go around braiding horses' manes? No, I wouldn't say that. But because it happens in multiple places,
Sure.
It happens all like.
Would you say that's as reasonable as it being Bigfoot?
No, I would say neither is. Yeah,
I don't think either explanation is reasonable
Yeah,
either.
no. But it's just a phenomenon that's happening that I can't explain it.
It's like crop circles, and I know where that's gonna take us down. I
Bro.
know, I can see in your eyes.
Go ahead, dude. Bring
but-
it. Because my wife thought, oh, this guy stomps. No, it's fucking not.
I mean, but there were guys doing that, right?
You're right. There is. But
it-
you could send a little lemming and have him do this and like, oh, look, there's a story.
It definitely
Everybody, shut up! I got a story. I got a reason now.
it definitely floods it calls into question everything. The fact that some people definitely did hoax it, right?
But the problem with this is we got to stay here for 2 seconds because everybody will now about crop circles.
Well, I'm actually gonna meet with you on this one.
Okay, cool.
Pretty evenly, actually. Is it a reasonable explanation that all these crop circles that popped everywhere were just people with 2x4s and ropes stomping on grain? No,
definitely not.
no. So is it sometimes in some situations
It
a
could.
reasonable explanation? But does that mean that it's aliens? Does that mean
It
that
doesn't.
no?
But could a human do it as perfect as these aliens have done? Or sorry, perfect as they're done.
However, this phenomenon happens.
You do the measurements and you're like, God,
Could
damn,
they
that's
sometimes?
pretty good.
Absolutely.
Sometimes with a lot of time.
Absolutely.
These things were done.
And do we have a sometimes a less than observant farmer who didn't realize that over a week some kids were fucking his crops up? It's possible.
It's possible, but it's not likely.
But it's not a reasonable
Dude's
enough
like,
explanation.
Oh, there's some lights out there. What's going on?
Yeah,
It's going on in the morning.
no.
Oh, this shit's
No,
weird.
I'm
Geiger
totally-
counters and all this other weird shit.
I'm totally with you on that, but that's not me saying that it's a extraterrestrial phenomenon. That's me saying that it's not a reasonable explanation that it's always a hoax.
Yes,
It happens
I would
way
take the
too
hoax
often.
shit and toss it.
Yeah, I'm not. It's not. It's going to be the first thing I'm going to question in my mind, but it's not going to be my automatic assumption.
I'm not giving it. I'll give it one little like, oh yeah, I see these people did this, and yeah, that's funny, but it's not what.
Yeah, crop circles are fascinating to me because I think that's an episode. So
Yes,
anyway,
okay, what's the next one?
So are we deciding that Bigfoot braiding the hair is a reasonable explanation? Because I don't think so.
It's not.
No.
But anything, I can't think of anything that would be a reasonable
No,
explanation.
but that doesn't make anything a reasonable explanation.
So it's in the middle. So
Yeah.
we don't have an answer right
It's
now.
wherever it's at.
Okay.
So,
okay.
So then the next thing, deciding that Bigfoot did the braiding, would that require me to be open-minded about the evidence? I think that it would.
Yeah.
So then I go, is it evidence? Maybe. But of what, I don't know.
So I think both of those, like this piece of evidence you put forth, doesn't push it either way.
It doesn't.
It puts it right in the middle.
It doesn't really
and
do
it'll
anything.
let you decide.
Yeah. It doesn't really. It actually doesn't really. It doesn't really move me in any direction. Right.
But it's something.
It's something. I definitely agree. I can't explain it, but I'm not ready to jump in and say Bigfoot did this.
Okay.
This is us walking up and there's a tree knocked
Right,
over,
right.
and all this chaos, and I'm going, well, I don't know what could have done this. And I agree.
But I'm
with
going
you.
home.
Yeah, something doesn't want us here.
So keep the rice and beans, and I'm out.
You
homie.
keep all this shit. We're walking up to the scene,
Yeah.
and we're looking at this, and we're going, a person did not do this.
Right.
People did not do this.
Right.
There was no tractor nearby.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't move the needle on Bigfoot.
Okay, so now my question is, how much of that let's call that middle of the road evidence, do we need stacked on top of each other to say?
I think if it's actual middle of the road evidence, I don't think this is middle of the road to Bigfoot existing or not. I just think this is just evidence that's evidence
Something.
of something.
Okay.
What it is, I don't know. Right. I'm not ready to throw into the camp.
Okay, well let's play this out. Let's play this out real quick. So sometimes these guys have like these oily, like there's residue from the beast on the hair.
Sure.
And we do the send it away thing, right? And then we send it away to the same guy we sent our cast and the hair samples we found from our other thing that we found away. Okay, we don't know what it is again, but this one matches. It's similar to the one you sent in before.
If we're being intellectually honest, though, we're not going to send everything to one person.
No, we wouldn't. But
We're going to send it to multiple people,
but
right? And even people we don't agree with.
Right, but we are going to send one of them to the same person we sent before.
For sure.
And then that person's going to say, I don't know what hell it is, and it seems to be similar to the thing you sent me before.
So, by the way, just real quick segue on this, because I was like, if I wanted to be a real jerk about this, like, and then be a dick and disprove Bigfoot, right? I had this idea that we'd just take dog hair samples and just send them to a lab and just see what they came back with.
Oh, yeah, that would be
You know, right? And if they came back and said unidentified, you'd be like, okay.
Okay, you're not a very
I can't trust that source, right? Which is maybe something you and I do, to see who.
I had some samples, yeah.
Yeah, if that person came back and said that's dog hair, you'd be like, it is dog hair. I sent you dog hair. I just want to make sure, we're on the up and up. But, and that's why, I call into question, academically call into question some things. It's like, okay, if we're just going to one source and this one source is saying 100%, definitely, 100%. And we got to be careful too, because sometimes people open schools or universities. You should look up Sports Science Institute for Gatorade.
Shady. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, the Sports Science Institute said that Gatorade was better than water. Basically, Pepsi made, or Coca-Cola, or whoever it was, made their own institute, right?
Yeah.
And there's another guy who does this Mud Fossil University thing to prove that all these rocks and everything are fossils of giants, and he's a professor of the school.
Accredited.
So you got to be, you definitely, got to call. You got to do your research, right? You got to. I hate that. God, I hate saying that. So anyway,
so this falls in neither of our.
I don't think this supports anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's. I'll get off the horse braiding.
I've got to look into that too. By the way, that's a whole
You have
thing.
to cut them off with scissors. But let's go to broken branches. 28 minutes.
I know if somebody's listening, they're gonna go into that horse. I need to look that horse thing up because I know somebody will fucking just crucify me for that.
I haven't spent any time thinking about it. There's some horse or some tree breaks and twists that are odd, but in the Mount Hood National Forest, there are literally billions of broken branches. They're caused by all kinds of stuff. So occasionally you may find a trunk or something of that nature that's been twisted and braided by a
trunk?
A Bigfoot, probably as a
I would really
territorial
need to see this.
sign. Cliff Brakeman has such a thing they took out just this last year. My great friend and fellow researcher, Steve Kiley, who is unfortunately also no longer with us, he found a Scotch broom. A Scotch broom trunk is a tightly woven vine, so it's not like wood. And that Scotch broom had been twisted apart like that. It would take, I put it on a device in the shop, and a section of, and at 2,000 foot-pounds, I still hadn't broken that thing. It's not a comparable test, but we did have that piece of broken, and it was tossed in front of a trail. We think it was a territorial marker. I gave it to Ray Crow. Ray Crow sold his entire collection to an outfit in California, and unfortunately that went along, and I think they disposed of all those exhibit items.
Well, I don't know what the fuck a Scotch broom is. Do you know what it is?
I do. I mean, but the thing is, it is a vine that grows and it can weave itself. That does happen.
Okay.
Right. So I don't know. And if something grows together, it's going to be very difficult to pull apart. Okay. So I don't know what that proves. A problem I have I saw this thing. These other people destroyed the evidence.
Yeah. It's nebulous.
It 100% is. So I just I wanted to just admit this to everybody. Horses are native to North America, specifically native to North America. So I'm gonna go ahead and eat crow on that one, and not double down. And just 100% I'm wrong about that.
Okay, cool.
I just literally was like, where are horses native to? And it was like North America, and I was like, well. So sorry guys. Hey, just so you know, I didn't do any research before this, so I didn't have any preconceived notions.
I think is better than them coming in with guns hot.
Yeah. I didn't want any preconceived notions because I already know anybody listening to this that's into Bigfoot is just gonna think I'm the biggest asshole on the planet. I'm not. I promise you, I'm not. But I didn't want any preconceived notions or anything, so I didn't do any research on anything he's showing me. It's all first time I've seen any of it, and I'm firing from the from the hip here.
Okay, so we got one last thing on this guy. I don't know why I don't have any more points from him in the.
He's great.
Past this, let's see, 30. He talks about structures.
A huge amount of time to figure this out, but finally I thought, that's a birthing structure. Someplace where they could have a baby.
There's a leap.
It is a
be
leap.
somewhat protected and out of sight. The only other structure that I found that I would even remotely attribute to Bigfoot, and I do, because Todd Neese found it with me when we were up in the Upper Cascades, and it's a grouping of trees that are teepeed, for lack of a better word, against a much bigger tree, and he is close to 6 feet tall and was able to stand up underneath it. There's a game trail that runs right adjacent to it. It could have been a shelter or a hide for a game trail. Most other shelters are Boy Scouts, survivalists, accidents of nature. The only shelter thing that I have heard of that I don't know about, but I can't think of any other reason, was that Cliff Barrickman's North American Bigfoot Center has gotten 2 reports this year after the Great Fires of Bigfoot crossing. Both of these happen to be on State Highway 35 on the east side of Mount Hood, up near the top, or in that general area. One of them was near what's called Sherwood Campground. The Bigfoot was carrying a large stump, a piece of cut wood, probably from a logging site, and was struggling, and it was so big and huge a piece of wood, it was struggling to get across the road. The other sighting was very similar and in the very same area. My feeling is that they were functionally starting to build themselves a log cabin.
Okay, so
that's an elaborate structure.
It's a lot. How do you feel about sightings like that, crossing the road kind of thing?
I always, I'm like I told you before, I'm gonna have a hard time disregarding somebody's eyewitness testimony, just because, they believe it's true,
right?
And I'm automatically, I have a habit of assuming that people aren't on the up and up.
Mm-hmm.
But when we're talking about something like this, I have to assume this guy's not making any money from this, and he has no reason to do one or the other. My problem really is that he's talking about somebody else's account.
Story. It's not his story.
Yeah,
right.
And so that there's a little less credence to that, because the telephone thing we talked about earlier. Where do we go with the sighting, right?
Could be anything.
If it had been his sighting, I would say that's what he thought he saw. That's what he believed he saw, and I'm not going to question that reality.
Okay. Well, fair. I think that's it for this guy. The last guy, this is a really old guy.
I'm going to watch him. He is
Joe
fascinating.
Beelart.
One thing he does, though, consistently, though, is, we don't have a picture of that because of this.
Yeah.
It's like...
just explaining it away.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, come on, man. Like, you're on a camera, and it's kind of unfairly what I did to Henry, where I was like, some of what you say is true. And then, we do this sometimes when we're talking to people. We want to add some kind of validity to something that we know is true.
Color it up.
So, we're going to add something to it to kind of, because whatever I have isn't enough for a story,
True.
And that doesn't make it less true. It's just...
It's bland. You don't want any fucking spice in your food.
Yeah, it just we do that. People, when we tell stories, we do this. 100%. When I'm in class and I'm telling you guys stories, they're not always completely true, right? And that's not the point. I'm trying to teach you something. I'm trying to tell you something.
Engage
you. There's a truth in them. Right? This is a big. All of us do it, by the way.
Yeah.
Every instructor does this. So, we'll tell you something, and there's a little bit of truth to it. It might not have been me that did the thing, but I might have seen somebody do the thing I'm telling you, right? But that's a thing that we do because we're storytellers as human beings,
100%.
and we're very word. Even though we write stuff down, we're very like pass stories down and tell stories, and that's how movies are so exaggerated from reality and everything, because that's what we are as human beings.
We love it.
So it happens.
Okay. So let's see. This is fucking fascinating.
I'm
This
talking
guy-
with my hands, even though we're.
cameras.
Well, you put the camera, and now I'm talking with my hands. It's not something I do normally.
So 6'18". Look at this guy's name is Peter Brine.
Burn or Brian?
Vern?
Burn? I like Burn.
Burn. Okay. Yeah, whatever.
Peter Burn. Let's write him down.
And now older gentleman, he's going to tell us about a Yeti hand.
I was in the Indian Army in India years ago. And I said, great. And then he said, what are you doing here? And I said, we're looking for the Yeti. And he surprised me. I nearly fell out of my chair. He said, we have a hand up in the temple here, a Yeti hand. Would you like to see it? So we went up there in the dark, and he showed me the hand. And I said, can I have it? He said, no. I said, can I buy it? He said, no. I said, could I take a finger? He said, no. So I cabled Tom Slick, told him about this. He said, you've got to get something. It's very important. Come and see us in England. So I flew to England and sat down with Tom Slick, Dr. Osmond Hill, head of the London Zoo, a luncheon, Ray Fizzard of the Daily Mail, and a Russian author, a lady whose name I forget. And we talked, and Osmond Hill said, you've got to get that hand. I said, I can't. They say disaster will befall the temple. He said, could you get maybe a finger? And I said, yes, if I could replace it with something. So he reaches under the luncheon table, brings out this brown paper sack, and drops a human hand on the table. He said, take that. Make a long story short again, a month later, I was back at the temple. And again, I sat down with this lama, and I said, I'll make a nice big donation to the temple. So he consulted with the other lamas, and they said, yes, you can take one finger. And so I did. I cut it off and took one finger,
What the fuck's the hand? The other
which
hand.
eventually
Has to do with it.
we got to London for Osmond Hill to examine. And the summary of his examination was, it's not a human finger. That's all. He didn't know what it was. So communication.
Okay.
Man, I look. I'm gonna tear this story apart. I mean, so
I don't know that.
he does a couple really clever things here. He tells a story right at the beginning here about seeing this hand, and I can't, and he's already setting up. I'm going to disappoint you at the end of this. Like I'm not going to have this, right? And then what he does is this really clever thing that, again, people do. He puts himself at the table with academics and he names them.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And you can't refute that, whether that happened or not. And they probably can't either. And then he says, and he throws this red herring about another hand into the story.
Where did the other hand go?
Which I actually wrote down here. I wrote Yeti hand and I wrote stolen because I was going to go, oh, that's why they can't talk about it. That's going to be his explain away about why this evidence isn't mainstream, is because they stole it and they can't admit that they stole
He got
it.
a finger, he says.
But he goes in a completely opposite direction with it entirely. And we end up with, it's not a human finger.
Well, that's what you're gonna get anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
Even from the get.
Yeah.
If it's a Yeti hand, you're not gonna know what it is.
Or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It could have been an ape hand.
Well,
It could-
no.
You know,
If it was an ape hand, we would possibly find out that it was an ape.
according to him. Right. So he says it's not a human hand, but say like the DNA is deteriorated to the point that we can't actually identify what it is.
Okay.
We can say like it's in the ape family. Right. Again, this is not my area of expertise. I'm an electrician. I don't know shit. So, and I'm not even a very good one. So I don't know, right? I don't know 100%, but at the end of it, we just kind of brush past that. Oh, it's definitely not human.
Yeah.
I
was intrigued by it when I heard it the first
This is a nothing burger.
It's
to
definitely
me.
a big nothing burger, but I was like, dude, Yeti hand? That sounds amazing.
Show it to me. Take a picture. Why
would love
could you not take a picture?
Exactly.
Were they like no technology in the temple? That's convenient.
Identifying Bigfoot prints. Let's see what he says about it.
Okay, sorry.
No, I agree. I wasn't expecting anything there anyway.
Is that me?
No, that's me.
Oh.
It's my wife telling me that I gotta stop.
Oh no, that's fine.
no,
She's
she
like, get
doesn't.
this lunatic out of the house.
He's telling me that kid is playing Zelda.
He would show me a grain of sand on a leaf and tell me what it meant, things like that. So when we found what looked like big footprints, I was able to interpret them. And more often than not, they were horse hoof prints or people walking in bare feet, that kind of thing. So it was useful to carry that knowledge over into Bigfooting. In all the years I was Bigfoot hunting, some private hunting on my own, and then 2 big projects. One was 3.5 years with Tom Slick. One in the...
I think that's what I was bringing up, the fact that he could identify non-Bigfoot prints.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
Yeah, that's so, like we were saying, identifying and interpreting doesn't mean shit. Like, you can't, yeah. That's our second rule, right?
Yeah.
All right, and I got let's see, no evidence, 24.
I mean, it doesn't mean you can't show the evidence. I mean, if it's just, that's you can see my I hate to say attack strategy, but you can see where the first things I jump to when I get skeptical about it, you can see where I'm like, okay, we're explaining a story away.
Right.
We're associating ourselves with these people to legitimize our story. We're telling a third or fourth hand account. I'm giving you an explanation for why the government won't talk about this. I'm giving you an explanation for why I don't have photographic evidence of this.
They know what your pushback's going to be,
Yep.
and they're trying to give you an answer before you even ask.
So a thing I said to you, I think, and we might have it on tape, is I said that the difference between a conspiracy theorist and a scientist is that a scientist will tell you I don't know, and a conspiracy theorist has an answer for everything.
True. Well, that's fair.
All
right. He also says there's no hair, no bones.
Things you can do with present day technology and science will not accept pictures, and that's all we have. We have no physical evidence. We have no bones. We have no hair. People report hair. There is no hair. People report bones. There are no bones, and there's a reason for that, I think. So that's the reason why it has not been classified or catalogued to now. I think we're getting closer to the possibility of a photograph, a good photograph, or footage. Everyone carries a cell phone. You can take pictures with a cell phone. Mm-hmm. There's that possibility. But discovering one, with a bit of luck, we might find a body that had died of natural causes, and then we would have physical remains, and that would satisfy science. Then they would classify it as a hominid, as this and that, and so on, whatever name they came up with. But as of now, that's where we stand. I got into this in...
Okay. Oh, wait, hold on. Yeah, he talks about no evidence.
He did. That was no evidence right there.
Yeah.
So we got nothing.
Yeah, and then he talks a little bit about skeptics over here.
Oh, I love it. Talk about me.
Yeah,
My people.
Let's see what he has to say. At the end. 30 minutes.
I love it. I want to hear what he has to say.
This area. So it gives an idea of the size of the area. We talk about skepticism in the Bigfoot field. I interview skeptics. I let them talk. And on the whole, I find them to be people who know nothing about it. They don't know reading. They're not interested. They're skeptical. Fine. They can have their skepticism. It's perfectly healthy. People who've done reading about it and little studies are convinced that there might be something there, that it's real.
Bold claim.
That the whole thing is real from beginning to end. 1 or 2 scientists have accepted it across the years. Many will not accept it. I've dealt with quite a few of them. And so that's where we stand on skepticism and belief at this time.
So I'm going to counter one of his claims there, right?
Okay.
So he says scientists believe it, right?
He said there's 1 or 2 scientists
Yeah,
that...
there's a few that believe it. Earlier he says there's no evidence.
Right.
And a legitimate scientist would not say this thing is real based on those claims. Based on that we don't have bones, we don't have hair, we don't have any of this stuff.
Right.
So a legitimate scientist would not go, Bigfoot exists with 0 actual evidence. They would say there's a possibility.
Okay.
They would say we haven't ruled it out. They
Yep.
would say something along those lines, right? But they definitely wouldn't say Bigfoot's real based off of everything that he said right there. Another thing, you can be. I've heard this before. This is a QAnon thing. This is a flat Earth thing. This is a moon landing thing where they go, if you haven't researched it or looked at it, then that's the reason that you're not a believer.
Right.
I'm going to tell you as a person that has done the flat Earth thing.
Yeah.
As a person that's done the QAnon thing.
Okay.
And a person that's done the moon thing. All of their evidence. I listen to their podcasts. I watch their shows.
Yeah.
Especially flat Earth. I'm really flat Earth's one
know
that
why the fuck you waste your time on that
well versed on. Right. That's a common claim that they use. It's not true.
Okay.
There are definitely a lot of us out there, tons of us. There's people who have whole podcasts where they research stuff like this and they go through every claim that they make. And at the end of it, they're still like, no, it still is bullshit.
Right.
Right. So to just say you're a skeptic because you haven't learned about it, I'm standing right in front of you. I'm sitting right in front of you.
Yeah.
I have not done all the reading and research you've done,
Right.
but I have done
Yeah.
on behalf of you.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm still sitting where I'm sitting.
Okay, that's
right.
fine.
And maybe I'm early into this. Maybe I am.
I just don't, yeah, maybe you are.
You
but
know?
I don't think you, even if you saw or heard all the things that I've exposed myself to, I know that because of your perspective of where you stand on things, it's going to be like, you're going to be like, no, I don't think so. Because your bar for putting it all together is higher.
It's, you know, I know it's frustrating.
That's not frustrating. This is what it is.
I like that you enjoy the challenge. I enjoy that you enjoy the challenge. And I'm not trying to. I don't want you to ever feel like I'm just stuck in the mud and I'm unwilling to change. And
I'm going to change your mind physically when we experience it.
I really hope so.
And then
I genuinely want this to be successful. I really do. You know, I think sometimes people think that when you're unwilling to believe something, you're negative and you're unwilling to change.
No.
And I'm definitely not.
I don't think so either. I don't think so. But I just think that you want something tangible, physical, or just more
I have a bar.
solid.
I have a bar.
It's high.
Yeah. You know, but it doesn't change. I don't waver. I definitely stick to it.
Yeah, but I'm also trying to find things that you believe that you don't. You've already believe them, but you don't have the bar.
Yeah, we're all hypocrites.
Yes,
right?
I was trying to find a hypocritical situation.
Everybody, and you know, and I've been called out on things before, and somebody like, yeah, but you said this, and now you believe that, and I'm like, yeah, I'm a fucking hypocrite. You know, like,
okay,
yeah, we all are. Like, sure, yeah, and there is definitely probably something out there.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
if we really got to talking, where you'd be like, you believe that?
Yeah. No, I think I've done it a couple times.
Yeah, well, I think I've definitely come at you with a couple things where I've been like, I'm willing to believe that this is a thing, or I'm willing to like entertain this as an idea.
But that makes me think that you haven't been exposed to it enough, and I'm like, wait a second, if I could just show them more of this shit.
I'm telling you right now, if you can get that scenario where we're camping,
and
the tree's broken and there's footprints everywhere,
Bigfoot
I'm gonna go. Listen, dog, we're done doing this.
Bigfoot is done. We put it to bed, and I know the only way I'm gonna do it is by showing you. And we're just gonna I'm gonna plan it out. And
it's gonna be a 1-minute podcast.
Yeah.
You're gonna play your thing, and I'm gonna go. Bigfoot's real.
Next.
End of episode.
Yeah, done.
See you in a month.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I'm sure.
So I've got some stuff. I want to do a counter. So podcast ideas like crazy. Right?
Sure.
So at some point, definitely the Ultima Thule thing. I want to bring that back. Yeah. But how would you feel about me going home and looking over everything we talked about here, and then coming with a counter?
Sure.
And then just coming to you next time we meet up and going, okay, these are all the things that we had that we talked about. I got a page and a half.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so now you've gone. I've given you live.
Yep.
And now you're gonna come back with and digest and come back with what you have.
Yeah, and I'll have videos and I'll bring up documents and evidence and stuff like that, and we'll approach that because I got a lot here.
Okay.
I mean, and some of this is stuff where I'm like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I definitely have this Gigantopithecus, and I gotta look into this.
I'm surprised you never heard of Gigantopithecus.
I really haven't. You know,
okay.
That's a complete. When I heard it, I was like, "That's made up."
That's real. It's really real.
100%. I like. I mean, but when you hear that, you're like, "That sounds made. That sounds like a made up."
Fantastical.
You know, it's kind of like what's the biggest dinosaur that ever lived? I believe it's Seismosaurus. That sounds.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I
Seismosaurus.
I gotta look it up.
That sounds silly.
It sounds
shit,
completely.
Dude. What? Seismosaurus.
I gotta look this up. Hold on. Seismosaurus, I think, or hold on, I gotta find it. I'm gonna try. I think it's something like that. It's completely. It just sounds completely made up, but it's real.
Like what?
See,
What
what? But when I said that, the first thing you're like, that's not real.
Pseudosaurus? What the? Wow. Okay. That's crazy.
So you know, it's not size as in size. Mm-hmm. It's like seismic. Mm-hmm. Like it would be so big, and so then you're like, okay, that actually makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, right? Yeah. So it's just one of those things. So when she said Gigantopithecus, I was like, that's not real. I'm just gonna destroy this right now.
Out of that. No, it's there.
Yeah. So you know, it's just it's one of those things. So if you don't mind, I think that's what I'd like to do for the next episode.
Sure. Yes, let's come back with that, but let's also segue into something new.
Yeah. I think this would be the last Bigfoot episode.
Yeah. What do you want to go next?
Oh boy, man, we got so much.
There's plenty. I don't know what tickles your fancy the most.
Why don't we? Why don't we make it a surprise here? Why don't I go back? I know we had some ideas from the previous podcasts. So let me go back and listen through because I can't remember everything I said.
Yeah.
But I definitely would love to do this whole Nazi.
Giants?
Well, not just giants, just how much they've influenced like popular culture.
Dude, want me to drop a bomb on you right here?
Let's hear it.
Okay, so we didn't win World War II. Nazis did.
I'm going to say something controversial. I'm going to say something controversial based on the recent election. I think you might be right.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal. You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
Genocides didn't stop him. Genocides didn't stop him.
No.
Genocides didn't stop. Controversial here. Israel is wiping out an entire civilization of people right now.
Yeah.
We didn't reach global equality of race. I mean, you can make a lot of arguments that even on a metaphysical level.
Yes. My statement comes from an alien research type thing. So the folklore, again, is that they were researching aircraft, trying to get into space and trying to win the war. They had research and they were trying to do these things. We were beating the shit out of them. We were going to beat them. So they took their brightest down to Antarctica, and they got space in Antarctica.
It's always Antarctica.
From a race of negative aliens that gave them space to then help them build their aircraft and get their shit together, right? So they lost on the front and the top. They took their best and brightest down there. Then we stepped in and took their B team and put it in NASA. And then to prove the fact that my statement, Admiral Byrd, which is
Admiral Byrd is problematic.
Whatever. He took a fleet.
I know Admiral. I know who he is.
You know the story?
Yeah. Well, he also believes that he also said that the Earth was hollow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know Admiral Byrd.
Okay, so he said but that's not hollow. But he said he flew into a hole.
Yeah, into the inside of the Earth.
Not into when you say that, it's like I'm looking at a ball and I'm gonna fly dead smack in the middle.
For sure.
No,
Yeah.
you heard of splunking, right?
Yeah.
Just think of it as a giant fucking
No,
hole.
I get.
So it's under the crust.
Yep.
But there is a race of people that live inside this whole ball we're on.
Yeah.
It still has magma in the middle, but
I believe this also. I believe that this also intersects with Saint Germain.
I'm not familiar. What's that?
So there's a couple of, and that's another one I get some of these mixed up, but I think Saint Germain claimed also kind of with Admiral Byrd that there was, and Saint Germain might be before, but essentially kind of the same idea, that there was a location in the Sierra Nevadas where you could get down into the core of the earth, and meet the race of people that live there.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
So now
But there's no evidence that Saint Germain ever existed.
I got zero evidence on any of this shit, but at least I love to talk about it. So, but this shit right here, we should talk about, because if he goes down there, right, and he supposedly brings an armada, and they get their asses kicked. Sure. And he comes back and he's like, "Yo, we're gonna lose." And we're going to lose with aircraft that can fly from tip to tip in like 20 minutes.
But is that what I don't remember Admiral Byrd ever actually saying that or claiming that he got his ass kicked down there.
There's interviews.
Well, definitely. I will get myself.
So anyway,
I'll get myself versed on those interviews.
The Nazis go down to Germany. They get their aircraft all tightened up, and now they're able to fight the U.S. And then they take those aircraft and they fly them over the U.S. Over the Capitol. Over the White House, and they're like, "Hey, we want to work with you. You have the industrial might that kicked our ass. We want access to that, and we want to build these aircraft that we're working on. Work with us."
There's some leaps here.
There are leaps, but there's proof also.
Okay, I'll have to see the proof.
5 things fly over the Capitol, 67, 57, I don't know, one of these, and then a week later, they do it again. They're like, "Hey," because U.S. was like, "No, we're not doing that." They do it again. And admirals, Washington, D.C., so you got credible people seeing this stuff. And they're like, "Hey, I don't know what that is." And eventually, the U.S. is like, okay, yes, we'll work with you, thinking that they're going to outsmart them and be like, no, you're not. We're just going to. But tables are turned. Nazis are outsmarting them. They are the one leading the international off-space thing going on currently to this day still.
Sure.
So that's where that's the storyline we should fly. But we're going to lead off the episode with that.
Okay, actually, so let me put something. I'll put a couple things together.
Okay.
And maybe, oh boy, that's gonna be a tough one for me, man.
I know it is. I have no proof though. I have nothing except video of his interviews.
Off the top of my head,
Mm-hmm.
the best and brightest were the Jewish that they wouldn't. That's why we got the A bomb and they didn't.
Okay.
Is because they were actually, this is factual. This is not, I mean, this is 100%. This is, you can look, I mean, you don't have
Oppenheimer.
to go.
Wait, what?
So Oppenheimer and Einstein. So Einstein writes that letter, right?
Yeah.
And
I didn't see the movie, so I don't know the whole story.
And I wrote like a book report, I think, in like 7th grade,
Mm-hmm.
I wrote like a biography in 7th grade on Oppenheimer. So I know a little bit, not a crazy amount, but Oppenheimer, he helped build the bomb, but I mean, he didn't invent it. I mean, like he was just part of he headed the project. But essentially, all those guys were German scientists. Einstein, Oppenheimer, all of them, right? And so
Where does the Jewish part come in?
So what happens is actually Germany's actually working on an atom bomb, right? And then they decide we're going to abandon this. This is Jewish science. Yeah, 100%.
Why do they call it that?
Because it was all Jewish scientists.
Scientists.
Oppenheimer's Jewish, Einstein's Jewish. Every one of them. They're all the guys who worked in the Manhattan Project, for the most part, the scientists, all of them were Jewish.
So the Germans said that we're going to abandon it because these scientists are working on it?
That's how we ended up getting those scientists when they defected.
Oh.
Right? Because once
they didn't want them.
Yeah, basically once Germany said we're going to abandon this is Jewish science, that meant those dudes had targets. The only reasons that they were alive, why they hadn't been in the concentration camps, is because they were working on this atomic technology.
Okay,
right?
I see.
So that I'm going to say is their best and brightest, right? And that I can 100%
They got left
factually.
behind, though.
They didn't get left behind.
Well, how'd they get over to us?
So you got to remember, we didn't enter the war until well into the war.
Yeah.
Like Americans didn't at all. We had them before we even got into the war. They defected to us. You would defect to the only place that you're not going to be actively in a war. Now, the United States knew they were going to
So they weren't part of Project Paperclip?
Those guys, no. None of the Manhattan Project guys were.
So that's what I'm saying. That's my B team.
But the B team you're referring to is the Paperclip guys, right? Yeah. And, one way or the other on that.
In their mind, they took their best and brightest to do their research on their aircraft.
According to the claim that you made, yeah.
Yeah.
So the other thing I would say is that by nature, the Nazis believed that they were the superior race.
100%. Yeah.
So them deciding to work with an alien race is a leap for me.
Okay, so the way they got into it, so they did think they were the best, right?
Sure.
This lady Maria Orsich, who was a channeler, supposedly had contact with this off-planet race, and the Nazis were like, "What the fuck are you doing?
Sure.
I don't believe you, but let's talk." Right?
Sure.
And supposedly they got in contact. They talked and like, "Hey, we want help with this. Can you help us?" They're like, "Well, yeah, we can. We'll give you some space time." They were just trading. They wanted control over the human populace.
Why?
That's now I have to make leaps.
Sure. on leaps.
This shit is I don't believe, but this gets into the reptilian stuff and like loosh and adrenochrome and all this other BS that I think is wild.
Let's throw all that stuff out here really quick. What's the most likely reason that aliens, if they exist, come to Earth? What's the most plausible reason?
Come here.
Yeah,
no,
they're going to come to Earth. I don't believe they've ever been here. But
okay. The plausible reason why they would come here.
Why would they come here? I can give you one.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let me say the first reason why I think they came here, if they came here or they weren't already here, ones that weren't here came here because we started firing off big ass firecrackers in that way of nuclear bombs.
Why would they care?
Because by firing off a nuclear weapon, not only does it mess up here, it messes up in the space of time. It bleeds into other dimensions supposedly.
Sure.
And that's why they are worried. Like, oh wait, Everything's fine here. Oh shit! What the hell was that? We got to go check on the children.
But
what are they doing?
stars are gigantic nuclear reactors, and whenever they go, it's a good millions, gajillions times more than a single nuclear weapon on Earth.
Right. I'm not debating that, but it's like that is nature doing nature's thing, and this is man-made
What's
things.
what's the difference? I mean, it's at its core, fission and fusion are nature. We're just manufacturing it. We're just making it happen
for the intent of destruction.
Sure.
Of other beings.
That's a leap for me.
You don't think that we're not doing all that shit for like the good of the people?
Oh, not at all. No, that's not what I meant. I just meant that like it affecting something else.
Okay, it is a leap. Yeah, I don't. And again, I can't prove that. I don't know, but that's what they said. That's when they started to show up. That was the reason. That was the leap to say like we started lighting off nuclear weapons. Aliens started showing up and shutting down our reactors.
So verifiably, two of the rarest things, period, in the entire known space, no matter where you go. The two rarest things that they're the hardest to find. Lithium, that's number one. So lithium, there's no mechanism in the universe that creates more lithium.
Okay.
Right. So the amount of lithium that currently exists is all that will ever exist.
To our knowledge.
I mean, there's no process that creates it.
Here on Earth, yeah. Okay.
No, anywhere. Right. So like gold is created in gigantic collisions between like neutron stars and black holes and things like that. So we know where gold comes from. And we know where iron is one of the last things that a star makes before it goes supernova. Okay. Right. Like as soon as it makes its first iron atom, it's seconds away from supernova. Okay. Right. Like, so all of those things are created by a mechanism. Lithium's not. Lithium is the only thing that doesn't have a mechanism that we know of course, right? That creates it. Right. And nothing can create more gold on Earth. The amount of gold that's here is the amount of gold that's here. Right. It just is what it is. Like there's no mechanism here on Earth that makes gold. Right. I hope we're on the same page.
I'm listening. I don't know.
Right? So the other thing is liquid water is super rare.
What?
Liquid water
is rare.
Super rare. Yep.
Because of the state of our distance from the star?
Correct. Heat.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So like if you look at like Enceladus, which is orbiting, believe Jupiter, or it might be Saturn. I think Enceladus orbits Jupiter or Europa, one of those, whatever. There's liquid water, but it's below miles of ice. Right. So it's impractical to get to. And you can harvest ice, but ice takes energy to melt, right? And even if you're a spacefaring species, like there's from where I sit and how I reason with space travel and how space travel works and like the realities of what it looks like, wasting energy to thaw ice to make water is not a great way to get around, right? So if a race is coming to Earth, right, an alien race, we're not a thing they want around, first of all.
So you say they would kill us?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. There's a whole, you start getting into like a whole, like, this is an honest, like, getting this whole idea of the dark forest theory of why we have not discovered life outside of our, solar system. Like we haven't verifiably. Hey, where is everybody? Right. Yeah. A lot of it has to do with maybe all these places are being quiet because they know the moment that they reveal themselves, the amount of resources that are in the universe are limited. Right, even on a universal scale, right? So like it's easier for me to wipe you out and take your resources, no matter what stage of development you are, than it is for me to worry about having to compete with you later on.
Okay.
Right, so that's a realistic thing, and we can actually see this on Earth. We come into the United States and we wipe out the native population because
we're fucking animals.
That's everything is.
No,
everything is.
I don't think so. I think we're just shitty. Learning little tiny humans.
Everything
as
that
a race.
Every life that exists so far that we have evidence of,
right,
exploits its environment and will wipe out competition to make sure it has access to resources.
Because we are low level races.
I just don't believe.
I think once we become higher level, will not be so destructive.
But the need for resources will be the same. Actually, it'll be greater. It'll be a greater need for resources.
Do you think we can exist with our resources? We are very wasteful.
Do I think it's possible? Absolutely. Do I think it's realistic? No, not at all.
Not in this state.
I don't think it ever will be.
Not in our state.
I don't think it ever will be.
I think humans will evolve to the point where we can.
Yeah. But, I would love to think that that's real.
Let's table it for now. And we're gonna come back and we'll have this conversation about the whole.
We just fucking went.
We did. Let's drop that rocket.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Get on this.
No, no.
one.
It's. I love that we have these conversations because it's great. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of people just like they get entrenched and they get angry.
Yeah.
And you're not. You don't get angry at all. You're
No.
like, I don't believe that. I can't believe you don't believe this. But
It's fine.
yeah, you're also really reasonable about it. So it's a good conversation.
Cool, man.
No, I appreciate it. Hey, great podcast.
Another podcast in the books. I'll see you guys again soon. And thanks for listening. Cheers.